Chapter 10:28. About an hour later, Noah brought Grey Vath out of the elemental elf world and brought her back to the Academy's recuperation room. Looking at Grey Vath, who was lying on the bed with a pale face, Noah didn't say anything for a long time. In the elemental elf world, Grey Vath collapsed after using the sky extinguishing flash. At first, Noah thought that it was the sky extinguishing flash that caused Grey Vath to end up like this. After feeding her a bottle of recovery medicine, he immediately brought Grey Vath back. However, just now, according to the diagnosis, Grey Vath collapsed not only because of the huge burden of the sky extinguishing flash, but also because of another reason. The meridians in charge of the circulation of divine power are all broken. Noah looked at Grey Vath's pale face and said in a deep voice, "Don't tell me that it's also because of the side effect of the sky extinguishing flash." Unlike Noah, who could directly extract divine power from the source of divine power, the elves in this world all had meridians in charge of the circulation of divine power. Now, the meridians in Grey Vath's body that were responsible for the circulation of divine power were broken inch by inch. If Noah didn't give Grey Vath a recovery medicine in time, Grey Vath would have died from such injuries. But even so, Grey Vath's meridians that were in charge of the circulation of divine power could no longer be repaired. In other words, from now on, Grey Vath would no longer be able to use divine power. And if she couldn't use divine power, it meant that she couldn't use contracted elves. In other words, the Twilight, who was known as the strongest elven user in the continent, who won the Elven Sword Dance Festival and made a wish to the Elven King that she wouldn't grow old and die. She was able to retain the abilities of an elven user when she was almost 40 years old, and her power didn't decline with the passage of time. Finally, the legend came to an end. Grey and Vath would never be able to use elves again. The existence known as the strongest fairy envoy on the continent would no longer exist. Such a serious consequence. Noah did not believe that it was caused by the side effects of the skies in flash at all. Although that move was very powerful, it wasn't to the point where one had to pay such a price to use it. Otherwise, Grey and Vath would never teach Noah such a dangerous sword skill. However, the sky's extinction flash might not be the cause of Grey Vath's injuries, but Grey Vath undoubtedly used the sky's extinction flash to completely draw out the cause of the injury. From the looks of Grey and Vath, it was clear that they already knew that if they used the sky's extinction flash, they would definitely end up like this. Therefore, Noah needed an explanation. It was an explanation that Grey and Vath had gone to such lengths just to teach Noah the skies in flash. Otherwise, Noah's conscience might be tormented for the rest of his life. After all, Noah's relationship with Grey and Vath wasn't deep enough for them to go to such extent, right? If he didn't figure it out, Noah felt that he wouldn't even be able to sleep well. You don't have to blame yourself. The sky's extinction flash was just a catalyst. My body being like this was already destined. Grey and Vath, who were lying on the bed, didn't look at Noah. Instead, they turned their heads and looked out of the window. They said in a hoarse voice, "Even if I didn't use the sky's extinction flash, it was only a matter of time before my body became like this." Of course, Noah was clear about this matter. If it wasn't for the fact that Grey and Vath's body originally had such a huge hidden danger, after drinking Noah's recovery medicine, Grey and Vath's body should have immediately recovered. Now, their body had recovered, but Grey and Vath's meridians that controlled the flow and circulation of divine power couldn't be repaired. That could only be because Grey and Vath's body had such a hidden danger all along, causing the cause of the disease to accumulate for many years. When it erupted in one breath, even Noah's recovery medicine couldn't repair it in time. It was directly destroyed, and there was no possibility of recovery. But for Noah, that wasn't a problem that could be avoided. In the end, Grey and Vath wanted to teach the sky's extinction flash to Noah. That was why their meridians were severed. Thinking of this fact, Noah couldn't persuade himself no matter how hard he tried. Grey and Vath didn't know if they sensed Noah's heavy mood, but they sighed and said so. "You should already know that I made a wish to the Elf King so that I could temporarily not age and die. As an elf envoy, my power should have been exhausted long ago. Thinking about it this way, I'm already very lucky to still have the power of an elf envoy until now. Gray and Vath turned their heads and looked at Noah. At this time, I was still able to teach that sword skill to you, and even teach the entire ultimate sword skill so that it wouldn't be lost. That's already considered lucky. I believe that with your tenacious body and powerful strength, you can definitely unleash the power of the ultimate sword skill more effectively than me. What's the reason? Noah was silent for a while and asked, There must be a reason for your body to be in such a terrible condition, right? It's okay to tell you. Gray and Vath weakly raised one hand and pressed on her heart. There's a spell seal engraved on my heart. Spell seal. Noah was startled at first. Then he exclaimed in shock. You transplanted a spell seal on your heart? Transplanted a spell seal on her heart. Recently, Noah had heard of a similar case. Versilia. This extremely conceited knight's life was almost ruined because of transplanting a spell seal on her heart. She even almost lost her life. Gray and Vath actually had a spell seal on their heart. If this matter was known by others, it would probably cause a huge uproar. The Twilight Witch, who was known as the strongest elf envoy on the continent, was actually so powerful because of a spell seal. This would definitely become a scandal. Don't think so much. Even if others know, it's not a shameful thing. Gray and Vath glanced at Noah. Don't forget, the ban on spell engraving was only issued after the Lambard War. The spell engraving in my heart was transplanted before that. Even if it's exposed, there won't be any problems. So, Noah frowned. You became like this because of the erosion of the spell seal over the years. That's right. Gray and Vath nodded. If it wasn't because of the wish granted by the Elf King that my body wouldn't be destroyed, my body wouldn't be able to hold on until today. That's not your problem. Noah suddenly fell silent. Lotus said that the erosion of the spell seal on her heart almost made Versilia lose her ability as an elf envoy. Thanks to Noah's recovery potion, she was saved. But Versilia hadn't been eroded by the spell seal for a long time. Unlike Gray and Vath, who had been eroded by the spell seal for decades, the side effects erupted all at once. Even Noah's recovery potion couldn't repair it, and it was completely destroyed. However, in Noah's treasury, there were no elixirs specially used to repair the meridians of elf envoys. After all, the treasures in Noah's treasury were all things from the Shape Moon world, and there were no elf envoys in the Shape Moon world. Naturally, there was no way to repair Gray and Vath's meridians. Why? Noah could only ask this question. Why did you go to such lengths to teach me the ultimate sky flash? This time, it was Gray and Vath's turn to be silent. After a while, Gray Vath sighed and said, Let's talk about it later. If you want to know, I'll tell you when the Elven Sword Dance Festival is officially held. After saying this, Gray and Vath closed their eyes. Noah could only give up on asking. After coming out of the infirmary, Noah's brows were furrowed. I owe that witch a huge favor now. With that thought in mind, Noah returned to Lindley's room in the dormitory of the Crow class with a heavy heart. He pushed the door open and walked in. You're back. As soon as he opened the door, such a voice immediately sounded. Chapter 1029. Claire, Lindsley, Viviana, and Alice were all present in Lindsley's room. Even Carol was at Lindsley's side. Together with the other girls, they all looked at Noah. How is it? Alice was the first to ask. Has the matter with the dean been taken care of? And Machem. Noah pulled himself together as he recalled the heavens in flash and the fundamental principle behind it. He nodded his head heavily. I received the thing that Gray and Vaz wanted to give me. Next, as long as he spent some time practicing and familiarizing himself with it, with Noah's sensitivity towards battle techniques, he should be able to quickly grasp it. And once he grasped the skies in flash, even if he didn't use Authority and Gate of Babylon, Noah would have a close combat technique that he could use in high-level battles. According to Gray and Vaz, even Lotus didn't know the secret behind this ultimate sword technique. Moreover, Gray and Vaz had lost their elven usability and couldn't perform the sword dance. Apart from Noah, There was no one else who could grasp the skies and flash. Even though Noah knew that Gravath must have her own reasons for teaching him Heavenly Flash, even though she was willing to let her elven summoner abilities decline in advance, in order not to waste Gravath's efforts, Noah would try his best to master the secret of this ultimate sword technique as soon as possible. Not knowing why Gray and Vaz called Noah out to teach him a trump card, Viviana curiously asked, "What did the dean give you? Something beyond your imagination." Noah shook his head and gave such an answer. "Maybe you'll have a chance to see it. Who knows?" Seeing that Noah didn't intend to continue talking, the group of girls also gave up on pursuing the matter. At this time, Alice suddenly spoke. "By the way, Noah, do we have any plans for our team?" "Plan?" Noah couldn't help but blink at the sudden question. "What do you mean?" "This is what our team plans to do next," Alice explained. "There is still a month before the official start of the Sword Dance Festival. At this time, in order to allow the participating teams to have sufficient rest, the Academy will begin to reduce the number of team matches held. Based on the current situation, even if we were arranged to participate in the group competition, it would probably only be 1 or 2 times, right?" Claire said in a relaxed tone. "Even if we don't participate in 1 or 2 of the group matches and forfeit, with our current ranking, we'll still sit firmly at the top of the rankings. We just went to the bulletin board to take a closer look and did some rough calculations. Our current ranking is almost half ahead of the second-place Pterosaur team," Fianna said somewhat mischievously. "With such a difference in points, I believe that even if the second-place Pterosaur team wants to kick us down again, it would be absolutely impossible if they don't complete at least 5 missions of the highest level before the official start of the Sword Dance Festival. In other words, it's basically impossible for our ranking to drop anymore. Even if we do, we definitely won't drop out of the top 3. Lindley had a complacent look. "We've already obtained the qualification to participate in the Sword Dance Festival. There's no more suspense." "I see." Noah understood. It was because they were clear about this that Gray and Vaz chose to impart the ultimate meaning of the absolute sword technique to Noah at this time. After all, Noah's team participating in the Sword Dance Festival was something that was almost set in stone. Seeing Noah's expression of understanding, Alice finally spoke of her plan. "Since there's no more suspense about us participating in the Sword Dance Festival, then I think, for the next month, can we not participate in the team competition and just give up?" Claire, Lindley, and Fianna all nodded. Seeing this, Noah was a little surprised. No matter if it was Claire, Lindley, Fianna, or Alice, they were all people who didn't want to admit defeat. Even if their participation in the Sword Dance Festival was something that was set in stone, they wouldn't slack off because of this and just give up on the Academy's team competition, right? What was going on? Seeing Noah's confused expression, Claire, Lindley, Fianna, and Alice all looked at each other. "Actually, I was planning to take a leave of absence and go home," Alice said to Noah. "To be able to represent the kingdom in the Sword Dance Festival, I have to go home and report the good news to my father and grandfather." "I'll have to meet my parents first," Lindley said. "As the eldest daughter of the Lorenfrost family, I have to fulfill my duty and report this good news to my family." "Actually, it's the same for me." Fianna let out a big sigh and looked listless. "Although I don't want to meet those fellows again, the royal family seems to have found out that I've solved the problem of contracting elves and will be attending the Elven Sword Dance Festival soon. I have to go back even if it's just for show." "Is that so?" Noah nodded in understanding. Not to mention Fianna, Alice, and the Lorenfrost family and the Frangerdo family were all famous families in the Empire. They had been loyal to the imperial family of the Empire for generations. Now, the children of the family could represent the Empire in the Elven Sword Dance Festival and win glory for the Empire. If they could win, the entire Empire would be protected by the Elven King. It was impossible for them not to report such a big event to the family. As for Fianna, as the witch who had almost become an elven concubine, the princess who had been despised because of her contract with elves naturally had to deal with all kinds of problems after the news of her recovery reached the royal family. This was the so-called standpoint, right? "What about you?" Noah turned his gaze to Claire. "Are you also going to take a leave of absence?" Claire's family had already declined due to Rubia Elstien's betrayal. Not only had their territory and property been confiscated, even her parents had been thrown into prison. She was the only one who had obtained her freedom in the Elven Academy under the guarantee of Gray and Vass. In this situation, Claire shouldn't be able to return home to report the good news like Linley, Fianna, and Alice, right? Who would have thought that Claire would reveal a slightly joyful expression? No, I also plan to take a leave of absence. You also plan to take a leave of absence? Noah was curious. Where can you go? Because I obtained the right to participate in the Sword Dance Festival, I have already requested a prison visit from the kingdom, Claire said expectantly. Therefore, I also plan to take a leave of absence and go to the kingdom to meet with my parents. Betraying the Elven King was a big crime. Because of this, Claire didn't even have the qualifications to visit the prison in the capital. She hadn't seen her parents for a full 4 years. It wasn't easy for her to use the card of attending the Sword Dance Festival to request a prison visit from the kingdom, so Claire naturally wouldn't let it go. In other words, all 4 of you plan to take a leave of absence? Noah confirmed. For an entire month? Claire, Linley, Fianna, and Alice all nodded in agreement. After all, it would take more than half a month to travel from here to the kingdom and back. My home is at the border, so it's even further. 1 month is barely enough. I also have to return to the kingdom. My home is also far away. Hearing the girl's words, Noah pondered for a moment and nodded. I understand. In that case, our team will unanimously give up on the team competition for the next month and directly rest until the Sword Dance Festival in a month. Yes. The girls were unable to contain their joy and agreed. Oh, right. Claire seemed to have thought of something and said to Noah, Then, how do you plan to spend this month? Me? Noah glanced at the group of girls. After a while, he suddenly smiled. I also want to go home. Chapter 10:30. The next day, Claire, Linley, Fianna, and Alice greeted Noah and left Alicia Elven Academy, heading to meet their parents. Noah, who was left behind, took the application documents and a basket of fruits to the infirmary of Alicia Elven Academy. He opened the door and walked in. Gray and Vaz were still lying on the bed yesterday, but their complexion wasn't as pale as yesterday. Instead, they had a ruddy complexion and looked as energetic as before. The recovery medicine that Noah had fed Gray and Vaz yesterday had started to take effect. Although it wasn't able to heal Gray and Vaz's meridians that had collapsed due to the erosion of the spell engravings for years, Noah's recovery medicine was still very effective in terms of her body. No one could tell that Gray and Vaz had lost their abilities as an elven user. At least, no one could tell from their appearance. Gray and Vaz seemed to have noticed Noah's arrival. They opened their eyes and looked in Noah's direction. Oh, don't tell me you're here for treatment. It's best if you're just sick. Noah walked directly to Gray and Vaz's bed, placed a basket of fruits on the table, and looked around. Speaking of which, you're no longer the strongest elven user on the continent. Don't you need to assign yourself a guard? Gray and Vaz, who were known as the strongest elven user on the continent due to their active activities in the Elven Sword Dance Festival and Lambard's War, had made a lot of enemies for themselves. As a result, they had been assassinated for almost half of their lives and had developed terrifyingly sharp nerves. But now, Gray and Vaz were no longer the strongest elven user on the continent. Even though the sharp nerves had nothing to do with the ability of an elf user, others still couldn't do anything sneaky around Grey Vath. However, if an assassin wanted to kill Grey Vath, even if they were discovered, the success rate of the assassination was still very high. If that was the case, not assigning a guard to him was no different from courting death. What do you think this is? Gray couldn't help but laugh. This is the Alicia Elven Academy. Not only are the Wind King Knights patrolling, but there are also teachers whose strength is comparable to the Empire's Elven Knights stationed here. Not just anyone can barge in. Do you think everyone can come and go as they please like you and Lotus? Besides, my body is almost fully recovered thanks to your medicine. From the outside, no one can tell that I've lost the ability to use elves. I can more or less intimidate some people. Grievous shrugged and looked up at Noah. Kid, I'll say it again. This isn't your fault. It's a fate that I had to face sooner or later. If you continue to blame yourself, it would be a little unreasonable. All right. Noah shook his head helplessly and handed the document in his hand to Grey Vath. I'm here to get permission to go out. Permission to go out? Grey Vath raised her eyebrows. Why? Do you want to go home and visit your family like those young ladies? Why? Noah asked. Can I? It's not that you can't, but I'm very curious. Where can a kid like you go from who knows where? Grey Vath stood up and took the document in Noah's hand and signed her name without hesitation. You have a month of vacation. Remember to come back before the Elven Sword Dance Festival. I'm relying on you. Got it. Noah shrugged. Anyway, no matter how long he stayed in other worlds, when Noah returned to this world, only a month would have passed. So it didn't matter. After coming out of the Academy's infirmary, Noah closed the door. Behind him, a burst of light particles suddenly floated out and condensed into a human figure. A beautiful silver-white waist-length hair hung freely by gravity, hanging on the soft and slender back. Aster opened a pair of mysterious eyes and looked at Noah. Master, Aster, are you awake? Noah was startled at first, then reacted and patted Aster's little head. How is it? Have you rested enough? Yes. Aster narrowed his eyes slightly, as though he was enjoying Noah's head patting. Even his voice had become soft and soft. I've rested enough. I can continue to practice with Master at any time. Is that so? Noah's hand movement paused slightly, and he squatted down. But I'm sorry, Aster. Let's cancel our practice for now. Hearing this, Aster tilted his head suspiciously. What's wrong? No. Noah hesitated for a moment, but in the end, he chose to tell the truth. Actually, I plan to go home soon. Unlike Claire, Lindley, Fana, and Alice, Noah's return home could only be realized in another world, and he had to pass through the world between in the middle. And Gaia and Alea had both said that only Noah could enter the world gap. Even as representatives of the world's consciousness, they couldn't enter the world gap. In that case, Noah had no choice but to leave Aster here. However, Aster seemed to have seen through Noah's plan. The expression of enjoyment on his face disappeared, and he stared at Noah. Being stared at like this by Aster, Noah felt a bit unnatural. At this moment, Noah felt like he was abandoning a pet that stuck to him, and he loved it very much. His heart was full of contradictions, but this was something that couldn't be helped. Although in this world, it seemed easy for the elven users to summon contracted spirits from the elemental world to their side, Noah didn't think that this kind of summoning could be carried out in two completely different worlds. From Noah's point of view, whether it was the human world or the elemental world, they could only be considered as different dimensions. They couldn't be considered as different worlds. After all, these two dimensions existed in a feather, so naturally they could only be considered as one world. But to actually go through the worlds and perform a summoning, Noah didn't think it could be done. Just as Noah was about to coax Aster, Aster abruptly blurted out, Master, are you planning to go back to the so-called world gap and go to another world? This sentence made Noah, who wasn't mentally prepared at all, suck in a breath of cold air. Aster, Noah couldn't hide his surprise. Yes, I already know Master's situation, Aster said expressionlessly, including the fact that Master came from another world and constantly traveled to various worlds to repair the broken worlds. Noah was extremely shocked. How did you know? Aster didn't answer, but asked back. Then, how did Master know about Aster? Hearing Aster's words, Noah suddenly came to a realization. Don't tell me. You also know about me through dreams? Yes. Aster nodded. The dreams between elven users and contracted spirits are shared. If Master can see my dreams, then I can naturally see Master's dreams too. Noah finally understood. Under such circumstances, Aster made such a request. Master, I hope to be with you. Noah was suddenly in a difficult position. But, Aster, since you know about me, then you should know that I have no way to bring you out of this world. Just as he finished his sentence, Aster actually shook his head. No, Master, you can bring me out of this world." Noah was stunned. "I am Master's contracted spirit, and also Master's sword," Aster said. "Although Master can't bring other people into the world gap, but you can bring weapons, items, and treasures. Moreover, you can bring them into other worlds. Then, if I transform into a spirit device, Master should be able to bring me along." Noah was suddenly moved. Thus, Noah pondered for a moment. After a while, he finally made a decision. Chapter 10:31. Walala. Cold, bone-chilling rain poured down from the cloudy sky, forming a dense curtain of rain that enveloped the entire space of Magnolia. The air was filled with a kind of chill. Who would have thought that it would rain so heavily today? Undoubtedly, yesterday's weather was so good. Could it be that Julianne is in a bad mood again? That's why it's raining so heavily, right? Oi, oi, don't talk nonsense. If Julianne hears it, our guild will be drowned in her tears. That's true. In the direction of Magnolia by the sea, in front of the entrance of the fairy tale guild that looked like a small castle, two middle-aged men of about 30 to 40 years of age were putting down the umbrellas in their hands while chatting. Although the strength of these two middle-aged men in fairy tale wasn't that outstanding, they were actually older members of the guild. The middle-aged man wearing a large coat was called Makeo. In the current fairy tale guild, there were many outstanding young magic shooters, and he was considered a senior figure. The middle-aged man with a jet hairstyle was called Wakaba. He was the same age as Makeo and had entered fairy tale at the same time. They were very good drinking buddies, but at the same time, they were also rivals. Long before Noah was adopted by Makarov, Makeo and Wakaba were already members of fairy tale. Thus, after Noah joined the guild as senior figures, these two had taken care of Noah when he was young. It was worth mentioning that these two were both perverts. Undoubtedly, they had wives, but when they were not working, they would often woo the younger members of the guild. Thus, as the most popular cover girl and the most popular girl in the guild, Mira was often harassed by these two guys. In the end, he was naturally rejected by Mira with a gentle smile on her face without any hesitation or mercy. Incidentally, when Mira and Lisana announced their engagement to Noah that night, Makeo and Wakaba got together to drink and cry for an entire night. Then, the next day, they continued to harass Mira. In short, although these two were of the older generation, they weren't serious people. However, no matter if it was Makeo or Wakaba, they were both very good people. Just as Makeo and Wakaba were chatting and preparing to enter the guild, suddenly, the sound of galloping horses could be heard from the other side of the rain, attracting their attention. In the pouring rain, a horse turned into a blurry shadow and galloped toward the fairy tale guild at an extremely fast speed, splashing the ground with rainwater. Who is it, riding a horse in such a heavy rain? It seems like it's coming for our guild. The two older members of the fairy tale guild turned around in shock and looked over. Not long after, Makeo and Wakaba saw the familiar face of the person riding the horse. Noah? Makeo and Wakaba both stared blankly at the same time, but in the next second, they immediately cried out in surprise. Oh, Noah is back. The person who came was Noah, riding a fine horse. Noah galloped along Magnolia's main road with ease until he saw that familiar building. His face was wet from the rain, and the corners of his mouth slowly curled up into a smile. To the people of this world, Noah had only left for a month. But to Noah, since the last time he left this world, he had been wandering in other worlds for more than half a year. After more than half a year, Noah returned to the world of fairy tale. Almost immediately, he bought the fastest horse and rushed to Magnolia without stopping. As the guild building called Fairy Tale became bigger and bigger in his eyes, a familiar and comfortable feeling arose in Noah's heart. Although in other worlds, Noah had enjoyed all kinds of treatment with various identities, among which there was no lack of luxurious treatment compared to the royal family. But that was not Noah's home after all. It was only when he saw the guild building named Fairy Tale that Noah felt a strong sense of joy, as if he had returned home. Perhaps it was because Makeo and Wakaba's shouts were too loud, but in the fairy tale guild, an uproar started to spread. Just as Noah was about to reach the entrance of the guild building, a group of people rushed out from inside the building and filled the entire area in front of the entrance. Big Brother Noah. With an extremely joyful voice, a slender figure squeezed to the front of the crowd. Seeing Noah galloping over on horseback, her face was full of joy. She raised her hand and waved at Noah while cheering. It was Lysana. Beside Lysana was Mira, who was wearing a princess dress. Although she did not express the same joy as Lysana, but if one observed carefully, one would be able to see that Myra's signature gentle smile was much more intense than usual. Apart from Mira and Lysana, Alusha, Lucy, Naz Gray, Karna, Elfman, Lebby, and the rest of the younger generation of fairy tale rushed out of the guild. Some of them waved at Noah, while others shouted at Noah. Seeing this, Noah's mood couldn't help but be somewhat excited, but the smile on his face immediately froze in the next moment. Noah, along with a loud thump, Naz clenched his hand into a fist, which was burning with a scorching flame that could evaporate the rainwater. He fiercely rushed out, and with an extremely excited smile, he landed in the direction of Noah, who was riding on horseback. Let's have a showdown. Seeing Naz, whose hand was burning with a scorching flame, leap out and charge towards him from midair, Noah narrowed his eyes and suddenly pulled the reins without hesitation. The galloping steed immediately reared up on its hind legs with a long neigh, its powerful front legs kicking out fiercely in the midst of the whistling sound of the wind. This kick landed right on Naz's abdomen, who was falling from midair. Bang! With a muffled sound, Naz was kicked away by a pair of powerful horse hooves. He flew back to the entrance of the Fairy Tale Guild at a speed faster than when he came. With Alusha, Lysana, and Mira leading the group of Fairy Tale members cried out in alarm and hurriedly dodged to the side. Naz, who was sent flying like an arrow, heavily smashed into the wall beside the entrance. After a while, he slowly fell to the ground with his arms and legs spread out, his eyes rolling in circles. Naz! Habby flew around Naz's head in a flurry. He looked like he was taking pleasure in Naz's misfortune. Are you dead yet? No. Naz groaned dizzily. You actually used a vehicle to defeat me. That's despicable. You really can't learn your lesson. Gray sneered. You know you can't win, but you still rushed up. How stupid. Well, that's also Naz's strength. Alusha smiled slightly, then said without changing her expression, Also, Gray, can you put on your clothes first? Woo-woo. Gray realized that he was only wearing a pair of shorts and cried out. Really? Lucy sighed sadly. Is there no normal person in this guild? Well, Lebby laughed dryly. Looking at the familiar scene, the smile on Noah's face returned to his face, and his mood surged. Finally, I'm home. Chapter 1032. Big Brother Noah. When Noah arrived at the entrance of Fairy Tale and dismounted from his horse, Lysana didn't care that it was still raining outside. Braving the downpour, she threw herself at Noah. Noah immediately went up to her, opened his arms, and pulled her into his arms. Smelling the familiar scent of his fiancée in his arms, Noah couldn't help but greedily take in a deep breath of her fragrance. He then knocked on her head and scolded her. I'm already back. Why did you still rush out? Can't you see that it's still raining outside? Big Brother Noah is the one who should be worried. It's raining so heavily and you didn't even take a carriage. Aren't you afraid of catching a cold? Lysana pinched Noah's waist, but she didn't leave Noah's embrace. Instead, she buried her head in Noah's chest and took a deep breath like Noah. It's Big Brother Noah's scent. Hearing her almost inaudible mumbling, Noah didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he hugged her. In fact, Noah's surging emotions didn't diminish in the slightest because of this. Instead, they grew stronger. It was obvious that Noah was in a good mood. Even though it was raining heavily, the passion in his heart wasn't extinguished by the cold rain. You too. Within the entrance, Mira put her hands on her hips and said angrily, Don't stay out in the rain. If you don't come in, I'm going to get angry. The guild members also started to jeer. Hurry up and come in. It's fine if you come in and hug her, right? I know you two love each other, okay? Haha. Noah is also a man. To be able to hug his cute and beautiful fiancée, let alone the rain, even the snow, is useless. Ha ha. The group of sorcerers from Fairy Tale burst out in laughter, making Noah and Lysana feel embarrassed to continue hugging each other. You guys are really annoying. Lysana let go of Noah in dissatisfaction, but she still insisted on holding onto Noah's hand. Even Noah shook his head with a chuckle. He held Lysana's hand and slowly walked into the guild. Mira walked over helplessly. She raised her eyes and looked at Noah. Then, with a gentle smile, she extended her fair hand and wiped the rain off Noah's face without any disdain. Look at you, you're so drenched. Be careful not to catch a cold. How could it be that easy? Noah shrugged and reached out his hand, caressing Mira's cheek. I'm back, Mira. Yes. Mira smiled sweetly. Welcome back. Her words warmed Noah's heart. Seeing that Noah, Mira, and Lysana were done being intimate, the rest of the group gathered around. You've been gone for a month, right? Alusha asked. How is it? Did you complete the mission? Back then, Noah had accepted a mission that would take a long time to complete. Using the excuse of going out on a mission, he spent a short 2 to 3 days to complete the mission before leaving the world of Fairy Tale. Hence, to the people of Fairy Tale, Noah had only gone on a long journey to complete a more complicated mission. I thought you would be able to complete the mission and come back faster. I didn't expect it to take you a month or so. Gray crossed his arms in front of him and looked at Noah. Could there have been some unforeseen circumstances? No matter which world it was, there was no lack of accidents. Sometimes, when sorcerers were carrying out a mission, they would suddenly encounter some unforeseen circumstances, causing the mission to become more complicated and difficult, causing the difficulty of the mission to increase. Everyone wondered if something similar had happened to Noah. Don't worry, there were no unforeseen circumstances. Noah scratched his cheek and said after hesitating for a moment. However, there was a bit of chance encounter. Chance encounter? Everyone was curious. What? Now seemed to have been resurrected on the spot, leaping up from the ground and squeezing his way over. Could it be that you met a dragon? I didn't meet a dragon. Noah suddenly smiled. But I met an elf. An elf? Everyone was stunned. In front of everyone present, Noah pulled out a short sword from his back. It was an extremely gorgeous short sword that was silver in color. Aster, Noah said to the short sword in his hand. Come out and say hello to everyone. As soon as his voice fell, the short sword lying quietly in Noah's hand suddenly bloomed with a strong light. A group of sorcerers from Fairy Tale collectively exclaimed. In the midst of everyone's exclamations, in the strong light, the short sword lying in Noah's hand slowly began to disintegrate into a group of beautiful light particles. There was a fluctuation in the space, and it gathered together. Immediately, the dazzling light particles converged into a human figure. Looking at the petite girl gradually emerging in the dazzling light, everyone present was absent-minded. Buzz, the dazzling light slightly fluctuated in the vibration of the space. Like a pure fairy, the girl emerged in the dazzling light. Her eyes were tightly closed, and her soft silver-white hair swayed up and down. With a kind of sacred atmosphere, she gently landed on the ground. That scene was simply like an angel descending. Everyone present, big and small, male and female, old and young, fell into a state of absent-mindedness. For a moment, they were somewhat unable to react, until Aster, like a chick that was awakened, pitifully trembled her eyelids and opened a pair of beautiful eyes filled with a mysterious feeling. The whole place suddenly became quiet. So cute. In the next second, a burst of earth-shattering shouts resounded throughout Fairy Tale. Rumble! This was the sound of a group of uncles with hearts in their eyes rushing towards Aster, causing the ground to tremble slightly. Don't even think about it. This was the sound of a group of girls bursting with maternal love, such as Alusha, Lysana, Lucy, Karna, Lebby, and even Mira when they saw a group of uncles rushing towards Aster's direction. Bang! This was the sound of a group of uncles being directly sent flying by a group of girls who had unknowingly grabbed a stick in their hands. Ah! This was the sound of a group of uncles being heavily hit by a stick, all of them flying backwards with blood spurting out of their noses. Following this, a burst of crackling sounds could be heard. This was the sound of a group of uncles flying backwards, smashing into tables and chairs, smashing them into pieces. Then, with Lucy, Karna, and Lebby taking the lead, the young girls of Fairy Tale all surrounded Aster, all of them shouting at the same time. "What's your name? You're really cute. Hey, do you have anything you want to eat? We can give it to you." Aster seemed to be frightened by the unusual enthusiasm of the group of girls. Her eyes filled with confusion as she looked towards Noah's direction. Seeing Aster's confused expression, Noah's face twitched. Even Noah didn't think that the people of the guild would have such a reaction. Hey, big brother Noah. Lisa shook Noah's hand with a similarly excited expression. "Who's that adorable child? Why did she come out of the sword?" Noah didn't know what to say. Actually, after confirming Aster's thoughts and discovering that he could really bring Aster into this world, Noah had already thought of how to explain Aster's origins. However, after seeing the unexpected scene in front of him, Noah didn't know how to explain all of a sudden. Or rather, it didn't matter how he explained. After all, the people here weren't the kind of people who cared about the origins of others. As long as they could confirm that this person was a companion, then for the magic shooters of Fairy Tale, that was enough. Could it be that it wasn't? Chapter 1033. On the top floor of Fairy Tale, in a room, Noah was lying on the bed. Feeling the familiar warmth and touch of the blanket, he couldn't help but stretch. Sure enough, my own bed is still the most comfortable. Frankly speaking, the bed in Noah's room in Fairy Tale was not luxurious furniture. It was almost no different from a bed in an ordinary house. However, for some reason, Noah felt that his own bed was the most comfortable. Perhaps it was because after returning home, Noah felt a sense of belonging and peace of mind. That was why he felt that his own bed was the most comfortable. But who wouldn't feel the same way? Noah, who was lying on the bed, felt like he was about to fall asleep. However, after recalling what happened earlier, Noah pulled himself together. He straightened his body and raised the short sword in front of him. His expression was somewhat amused. "Aster, don't hide anymore. There's no one else here." As soon as his voice fell, the short sword in Noah's hand trembled slightly and emitted a gentle white light. Shortly after, Aster slowly emerged from the gentle white light and fell into Noah's arms. Aster raised his head and silently looked at Noah. He didn't speak or move, which made Noah feel amused. Aster seemed to be unable to withstand the enthusiasm of his companions in Fairy Tale. In the end, after being surrounded and unable to escape, he transformed back into his short sword form and returned to Noah's side. Then, he refused to come out. If it wasn't for Aster's adorable appearance that caused him to be doted on by many people in the Elven Academy, Noah felt that Aster might have been traumatized by it. Now, under Aster's speechless gaze, Noah seemed to be able to see that Aster was protesting in his heart. He laughed and patted Aster's head. "You were the one who said that you wanted to come back with me." With one sentence, Aster couldn't find a reason to complain. Seeing Aster's deflated expression, Noah couldn't help but laugh. This time, Aster wasn't willing. "Master is so evil." "Who said so?" Noah pretended to be serious. "I'm happy to see Aster being so popular." Liar. Aster was rarely so aggressive. "Undoubtedly, Master didn't want to save me. That wasn't dangerous, so it's not called save it, right?" Noah didn't know whether to laugh or cry. When you were in Elven Academy, weren't you used to being loved by others? Being respected by humans is a good thing. Aster raised his eyebrows. "However, the humans here don't seem to respect me at all. It's more like they treat me like a pet." Hearing this, Noah couldn't help but mutter in his heart. The students in Elven Academy also treat you as a pet. It's just that you didn't realize it. Of course, Noah wouldn't say it out loud. Instead, He continued to rub Aster's head with a gentle smile. Then, does Aster hate it? Aster muttered for a while and shook his head. Although I don't hate it, I don't like it either. Is that so? Noah asked again. Then, what does Aster think of fairy tale? Very noisy, Aster said, but he quickly changed the topic. But it's also very warm. That's right. Noah's expression became even gentler. That's what I thought too. Seeing the gentle expression on Noah's face that couldn't be concealed, Aster looked at Noah and said, Master seems to be very happy. Oh, Noah raised an eyebrow. How do you know? Feeling. Aster continued to stare at Noah, to the point where he couldn't take his eyes off him. Master, now, has a different feeling compared to when he was in the academy. Feeling? Noah rubbed his nose. What kind of feeling is it? Aster didn't seem to know how to describe it. In the end, he could only say this sentence. There's a very relaxed feeling. Relax. Noah blinked his eyes and could only smile faintly. Maybe, after all, we're back home. Hearing Noah's words, Aster opened his small mouth as though he wanted to say something. However, he suddenly stopped, and his body flashed with a ray of light. He transformed back into his dagger form and dropped onto the bed. Seeing this, Noah was startled at first. Then he noticed it. Outside the door, there was a sound of footsteps slowly approaching. After a while, the door to Noah's room was opened. Outside the door, a white head came in and looked at Noah with a cute smile on her face. Big brother Noah, I'm coming in. Lysana. Noah smiled helplessly. Don't you have to work? Like Mira, Lysana was no longer going out on missions as a sorcerer. Instead, she was working as a waitress in fairy tale. Occasionally, she would help Makarov with guild affairs and could be considered as the chairman's assistant. At this time, Lysana should be busy downstairs like Mira. It was because of this that Noah came up alone and didn't bring Mira and Lysana, who knew that Lysana would still sneak up. There's big sister Mira downstairs. It doesn't matter if I'm not here. Although she said this, Lysana felt like she was sneaking in. After sneaking in, she immediately closed the door. Without any hesitation, Lysana squeezed onto Noah's bed and hugged Noah's arm. She rested her head on Noah's shoulder, looking like she was in a good mood. Noah could smell a very pleasant scent from Lysana's body. After accompanying Noah in the rain for so long, it was impossible for Lysana not to take a shower. So, this smell should be the smell of shower gel or shampoo, right? What's wrong? Noah patted Lysana's head. Do you need something from me? Ugh. The happy smile on Lysana's face turned into a sulky expression. Can't I look for you if there's nothing? Looks like there really is nothing. Noah laughed. Where's Grandpa? Why isn't he here? The chairman went out for a meeting. Lysana replied obediently. I heard that it's a meeting that many large guilds have to attend. The chairman of the other guilds went, and so did the chairman. A meeting? Noah sighed. That's really unfortunate. The chairman said that he won't be gone for long. Lysana hurriedly said. It shouldn't take long for them to return. That's good. Noah's expression relaxed. I was wondering why Grandpa wasn't in the guild. We were also wondering why Big Brother Noah would suddenly bring such a cute girl back. Lysana puffed up her cheeks. That child is called Aster, right? The full name is a little complicated, so you can just call her Aster. Noah scratched his cheek. Also, rather than saying that I brought her back, it's better to say that she came back with me, right? Is that so? Lysana looked at Noah suspiciously. I don't think it's that simple. Well, I'll find a chance to tell you about my relationship with Aster in the future. Noah shrugged and reached out to pinch Lysana's little nose. You're not jealous, are you? Of course not. Lysana wrinkled her nose and slapped Noah's hand away, looking at Noah with some resentment. I just didn't think that Big Brother Noah would bring a girl back one day. Then you're still saying that you're not jealous. Noah patted her head lovingly. That's jealous. I already said that I'm not. Don't mess up my hair, Lysana protested, opening her canine teeth and biting Noah's face. However, Noah advanced instead of retreating. When she bit him, he leaned forward and covered her lips with his. Ugh! Lysana let out a muffled groan. She clenched her fist and knocked on Noah's chest. Then, she stretched out her hand and hugged Noah tightly, kissing and hugging him. Although she wasn't jealous, Lysena felt lonely during the days when Noah wasn't in the guild. Chapter 1034. In the eyes of the people in Fairy Tale, although Noah was away for a month because of a mission, it was not as long as Kilda's. This guy, who was known as the strongest magic shooter in Fairy Tale, had been away for several years. Every time he left the guild and waited for Kilda's to come back, it would take him years to do so. And every time Kilda's left the guild, he would leave for such a long time. There were all kinds of reasons, but the most important reason was that this guy was not someone who could stay idle. He would often wander around the corners of the continent. This time, before Kilda's left, he also accepted a mission. That was not an ordinary mission. It was not even an S-rank mission that only S-rank magic shooters could accept. It was necessary to mention it here. In fact, above S-rank missions, there were even higher-ranked missions, known as SS-rank missions. That was a dangerous mission that even S-rank magic shooters had to carefully consider their own abilities. And above SS-rank missions, there was a 10-year mission. Not a single magic shooter had been able to complete it in the past 10 years. Hence, it had become an extremely difficult task that had almost become a legendary task. Before Kilda's left the guild, he accepted a mission. It was not an SS-rank mission that was more difficult than S-rank missions, nor was it more terrifying than SS-rank missions. It was a 10-year mission that no one could complete in 10 years. Instead, it was a 100-year mission that no one could complete in 100 years. A mission that no magic shooters could complete in 100 years. One could imagine how difficult and dangerous that mission was. Of course, it was normal for him to spend 2 to 3 years on such a difficult mission. If he could complete that 100-year mission, perhaps Kilda's would really become a legend in Fairy Tale. Compared to this, Noah, who had only been away for a month, was really nothing. Therefore, Fairy Tale was as noisy as usual, but no one came to disturb Noah. And so, Noah had a rare good sleep. He slept until the next day. Chirp. In his sleep, Noah suddenly felt his lips being sucked by a pair of even smaller lips. It was a wonderful feeling. Am I still kissing Lysena? In his hazy state, Noah only had this question. It could not be helped. After all, Noah had spent so much time with Lysena yesterday. After sending her out of the room, he immediately fell asleep. However, as his consciousness became clearer, Noah felt that something was wrong. No, Lysena's lips are not so small, and it can't be Myra's lips. The touch of these lips in his gradually awakening mind, Noah successfully found the memory of a girl who matched those small lips. At that moment, Noah shuddered and completely woke up. As soon as he opened his eyes, a young but extremely delicate face entered Noah's sight. Moreover, this face was not only less than 5 centimeters away from Noah, but also had its eyes closed. The small lips were tightly pressed against Noah's, continuously kissing him. At this moment, Noah could no longer remain calm. He hurriedly pushed away the immature but extremely delicate face in front of him. While breathing in the air that he did not know when he had started to lack, he cried out, "Aster!" That was Aster. He was completely naked, with only a pair of knee socks on his thighs. Aster was riding on Noah's waist. For some reason, he took the opportunity to kiss Noah when Noah was asleep. "Master!" Only then did Aster open his eyes. His face was expressionless as usual. However, because she had been kissing Noah all this while, Aster's eyes were swaying like rippling water. She looked quite alluring. If it was not because Aster's face was not blushing, Noah would probably be moved. Now Noah only had a headache. "Aster!" Noah could not bear to look at him and covered his face. "You're not wearing clothes again. It's not like that, master." Aster squeezed the thigh that was riding on Noah's waist. "I'm wearing these socks." "Okay." Noah sighed. "Then why did you take the opportunity to kiss me when I was sleeping?" "Because I wanted to wake master up," Aster said, as if it was a matter of fact. "According to past experience, if I use this method, master will immediately wake up. Can you please change wake up to wake up?" Noah knocked his head and said as if he could not stand it anymore. "In short, can you put on clothes first?" Aster did not obediently listen to Noah's orders like before. Instead, he opened his big eyes and stared straight at Noah. Does Master hate my kisses? Hate? Noah was slightly startled. Why do you say that? Because every time I kiss Master, he doesn't seem to like it very much. Aster said to Noah. Isn't that hateful? It's not like that, Noah said helplessly. It's just that it's too sudden and I'm a bit scared. Aster stared at Noah without blinking. After a while, he spat out 2 words. Liar. Noah was startled and said strangely. Why do you say that? Because... Aster's eyes flashed. Yesterday, when Master kissed someone, undoubtedly he was very happy. Noah was speechless. Noah definitely did not hate Aster's kisses. It was really because Aster did it so suddenly every time. Furthermore, he took advantage of Noah's sleeping state to ambush him. That was why Noah's reaction was so big. As for the kiss with Lysana and his fiancée, there was no reason for him to be unhappy, right? In the end, the contrast between the two made Aster feel dissatisfied. Does Master dislike my kisses that much? Aster asked as he moved his face closer to Noah. Is Master tired of playing with me? What do you mean tired of playing with you? Noah could not help but ask. Who taught you to say that? No one taught me. I saw it in the dessert seller's book. Linley, what kind of book do you usually read? Please don't change the topic. Aster moved his face closer to Noah, his eyes looking straight into Noah's eyes as he persistently asked, why does a master like my kisses? It's really not that I don't like it. Noah could only smile bitterly. It's just that it's too sudden, really. Is that so? Aster nodded. Soon after, he made such a request. Then, please kiss me now, Master. Noah's eyes widened slightly as he stood up in shock. At that moment, Noah saw a trace of indignation in Aster's eyes. That was Aster's indignation because he felt that Noah was treating him differently. It was obvious that Noah's reaction to the two's kisses was so different that she was throwing a rare tantrum. It was just like when Noah used a noble artifact and other weapons. Aster, who had always thought of herself as Noah's sword, was dissatisfied. Master, please close your eyes. Aster closed her eyes and pouted her lips as she moved closer to Noah's face. Seeing Aster's young and beautiful face getting closer and closer, and her delicate lips slowly moving closer, this time, Noah was really moved. Just as Noah and Aster were about to kiss, the door to the room opened. Big brother Noah, time to get up. The voice that broke into the room not only gradually stiffened, but it also woke up Noah and Aster. On the other hand, Noah recognized the owner of the voice almost immediately. The corners of his mouth twitched, and he stiffly turned around to look at the door. Over there, Lysana maintained her posture of opening the door. She looked at Noah and Aster, who were clearly about to kiss. Her gaze swept over Aster's naked and tender body. Then, Lysana turned around and ran out, crying and yelling. Big brother Noah is a playboy. At that moment, Noah had the urge to die. Chapter 1035. Restless. This was what Noah was feeling right now. This was a feeling that Noah had not experienced in a long time. However, at this moment, if one had to describe Noah's state, it would be restless. This feeling was even more intense when Noah arrived at the fairy tale's first floor hall. Stare dash. Almost immediately, everyone in the guild turned to look at Noah. This was not the first time that Noah had experienced the feeling of being the center of attention. He had even experienced more intense scenes than this. However, even so, Noah still felt extremely awkward. There was no other reason. Of the gazes that his companions in the guild cast toward Noah, some are filled with surprise, some are filled with confusion, some are filled with disbelief, some are filled with disbelief, some are filled with indignation, and some are filled with schadenfreude. Their gazes were filled with all sorts of emotions. Seeing this, Noah understood. Lysana's shout of "Brother Noah is a womanizer" was heard by everyone in the guild. In other words, the current situation was that everyone in the guild thought that Noah had cheated. It was that simple. Lysana was currently at the bar, talking to Mira about something. When she saw Noah come down, she immediately snorted and turned her head away. Thus, everyone in the guild turned to look at Noah even more intensely. Noah felt as if he was sitting on pins and needles. This feeling was really unbearable. It was at this moment that Noah's group of companions came over and surrounded them. "You brat, don't tell me you really did something wrong to Mira and Lysana?" The one who said this was Gray. In the whole of fairy tale, Noah and Gray's relationship could be said to be the most brotherly. It cannot be helped. After all, the first person that Noah met after coming to fairy tale was Gray. Thus, compared to Lax's, Noah and Gray were more like brothers. It was also because of his understanding of Noah that Gray did not believe that Noah was that kind of person. It was not that Gray did not think that Noah would not get together with other girls outside. After all, in fairy tale, Noah already had 2 fiancées, didn't he? Gray did not believe that Noah would anger Lysana because of other girls. Even if he got together with other girls outside, Noah would definitely not let Mira and Lysana down. With this thought in mind, Gray asked such a question and said such a sentence. "I don't believe that you are that kind of person." "I don't believe it either," Naz shouted. Although I don't know what's going on, Noah wouldn't do anything bad. On the contrary, Elisha showed a creepy smile to Noah. "Noah, marriage is a very beautiful thing. You are already engaged to Mira and Lysana, so don't do anything to tarnish the sacred marriage." Seeing Elisha smile, Noah felt a little scared. For some reason, Elisha seemed to be looking forward to marriage. When Noah was engaged to Mira and Lysana, the fairy queen secretly looked at wedding magazines more than once. Therefore, for Elisha, marriage was a very sacred thing. Now, Noah seemed to be having an affair, even though he was engaged to Lysana. To Elisha, this was definitely an unforgivable thing. Although, this matter was very troublesome in itself. Hey, even Lucy looked at Noah with suspicion. "Noah, did you really do something wrong to Lysana? If you really did it, you better say it now," Lebby said angrily. "Otherwise, it's really too bad." "Well, even if it's Noah, he's still a man." Kana looked very carefree. "It's normal for men to be promiscuous. Or rather, he already has 2 fiancées. That's enough to prove how promiscuous Noah is, right?" This sentence was refuted by Elfman, who rushed over like a steel tower. Oh, man. After knocking Naz and Gray away, Elfman rushed in front of Noah and grabbed Noah's shoulders with his palms as big as banana leaves. He glared at Noah and kept exerting force. "Even if you're a man, I can't forgive you for letting down my sister and Lysana. Be a man. Pinch, 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 pinch." Elfman kept exerting force, as if he wanted to crush Noah's shoulders. If it wasn't for Noah's basic ability of durability, he would have been crushed into a metal pancake by this muscular man. Being surrounded and questioned by a group of friends who grew up with him, Noah really felt a lot of pressure. At that moment, Noah could only smile bitterly and open his mouth. Just as he was about to say something, a voice interrupted. "I say, don't interrogate Noah like this." Mira, who had appeared out of nowhere, separated the group of friends around Noah and patted away Elfman's hand that was gripping Noah's shoulders. She gently rubbed Noah's shoulders and said to everyone with a coquettish expression, "Noah hasn't even explained, and all of you look like you're condemning him. What if you scare Noah?" "No, this shouldn't scare him." Elisha and the others couldn't help but feel a little embarrassed. "Sister?" Elfman asked carefully. "Aren't you angry? How can you be angry when you haven't figured out the situation yet?" Mira gently pushed everyone away. "Anyway, don't interrogate Noah like this. Go to your own things." Hearing that, Elisha and the others dispersed and went to do what they were supposed to do. The guild members who were watching a good show also returned to their noisy state and stopped paying attention to what was going on. Seeing this, Noah heaved a sigh of relief, even though he didn't feel that he had done anything wrong. He then looked at Mira with an awkward expression. "All right, I'm not going to do anything wrong. Mira, don't worry, I'm not angry at you." Mira rubbed Noah's shoulders in amusement and gently tidied up Noah's clothes that were messed up by his little friends. "She's not really angry at you. She's just blaming you for hiding something from her. Hiding your relationship with that kid called Aster. Is that so?" Noah sighed. "I'm not hiding anything. I told her last night that I'll find a chance to tell her about my relationship with Aster. So, she's not angry at you." Mira shook her head with a smile. If you really feel a little uneasy, then find a chance to coax Lisa later. That child is very easy to coax. You should know that very well. Noah could only nod helplessly. Then, I'll go back to work. You think about how to make her happy. Mira said. Then, she placed her hand on Noah's waist in a very natural manner. A smile that was gentler and more beautiful than ever appeared on her face. Also, remember to tell me what's going on after this. Looking at Myra's beautiful smile, Noah's heartbeat quickened as he complained inwardly. Sure enough, Mira was angry too. After Mira left, Noah rubbed his forehead and walked into the guild hall. At this time, the voices of the magic shooters in the guild entered Noah's ears. Recently, there seems to be an increase in crusade missions, and they're all missions related to the Dark Guild. Those guys are really unscrupulous. There's nothing we can do about it. Don't they know what time it is? Noah could clearly hear the conversation between the magic shooters of Fairy Tale around him. He stopped rubbing the space between his eyebrows and frowned instead. There are dark guilds active? This isn't good news. Chapter 1036. Due to the incident of the Paradise Tower, the original council had been disbanded under various public opinions. The new council was still in formation and couldn't operate for the time being. Therefore, since the dissolution of the council, many dark guilds and magic orders that could only operate in the dark began to stir. Not long ago, there were many dark guilds and magic orders that directly operated in the open, causing the magic shooters in the various guilds to rush between major cities for a period of time to crusade against those illegal dark guilds and magic orders. It had been more than 2 months since the incident at the Paradise Tower. For example, the dark guilds and magic orders, which lacked strength and foresight, had jumped out to abuse their power after the council was disbanded. By right, most of the large guilds should have been suppressed by the various large guilds. Noah heard that in the month he left, the activities of many dark guilds and magic orders had begun to calm down. Who would have thought that until now, there were still dark guilds that were active? That wasn't a good thing. After all, most of the weak dark guilds had already been wiped out. The dark guilds that could survive the encirclement of the various large guilds for more than 2 months definitely wouldn't be those clowns who didn't have any foresight and only knew how to jump out and make a scene. Now that the weak dark guilds have been suppressed, the big shots in the dark guilds would probably start to emerge, right? For example, one of the 3 most powerful dark guilds of the Baram Alliance that controlled the entire dark world, Grimoire Heart. It was the Guild of Hades, who had once threatened to destroy Fairy Tale. At this thought, Noah scanned his surroundings and fixed his gaze in a certain direction. There, Alusha, Naz, Gray, Lucy, and Habe were sitting around a table. Noah walked over and stood behind Alusha. What are you talking about, Noah? Alusha turned her head and looked at Noah. Her expression seemed to vaguely reveal a hint of seriousness. We're talking about the recent Dark Guild Crusade mission. Sure enough, Alusha was the same as Noah. She realized that the active dark guilds weren't as simple as those dark guilds in the past. Recently, we've been accepting this type of mission. Gray, who had taken off all his clothes except for a pair of shorts, said to Noah with his legs crossed. However, the mission isn't going well. Noah sat down next to Alusha and asked Lucy, who was sitting on the other side, "Didn't go well? What? Did something happen?" "There isn't any trouble. It's just that the dark guilds have become more and more difficult to deal with recently." Lucy sighed deeply. Right now, the dark guilds are very cunning. Taking advantage of the fact that the new council has yet to be established, they started to become active. But once we, who have accepted the crusade mission, arrive at the mission location, they will immediately start to retreat. Several of our missions have nearly failed because of this. "Love," Habby said as he sat at the dining table and gnawed on a fish. "It's all Naz's fault. He was too excited and caused a huge commotion every time. The dark guilds received the news in advance. If it wasn't for Alusha chasing after him, our mission would have directly failed. Can you blame me for that? It's all because those guys are too cowardly." Naz grumbled in dissatisfaction. "Since you want to fight, then come out and fight me fair and square. Why are you running?" "No, they are the dark guilds. Lucy couldn't help but ridicule. How is it possible for me to fight you fair and square? But the crusade missions are getting more and more difficult. This is something that we have to admit, Elisha said solemnly. Our team is still all right. We can barely deal with those cunning dark guilds. But the other team's missions don't seem to be going so smoothly. And that's because our team has me, Naz, and Gray. Elisha is now definitely the most powerful female archmage in the entire fairy tale, other than Mira. Or rather, in the long period when Mira was no longer active as archmage, Elisha's strength might have completely surpassed Myra's. At least, Noah's sensing ability told him that Elisha has grown a little in this month. It's probably because of the long-term crusade missions that she has tempered herself in actual combat and slaughter. With Elisha's current strength, it's not impossible for her to be chosen as one of the top 10 holy archmages. Adding on Naz and Gray, who are the strongest under the S-rank archmages, there's no problem in dealing with some petty tricks from the dark guilds. Thus, Lucy laughed out loud. Sure enough, who didn't include me? Well, Lucy, don't be sad. Hubby snickered. Who asked you to be so weak? It's not up to you to say that. You're weaker than me. Lucy was furious. And you weren't included. Hearing this, hubby proudly puffed out his chest. Because I'm a cat. Hearing this, Lucy complained again. There's nothing to be proud of, right? Seeing Lucy and hubby talking back and forth, leading the whole atmosphere to a happy scene, Noah couldn't help but smile. And then he became serious. I don't care about the other dark guilds. I'm more concerned about the 3 dark guilds of the Baram Alliance. Elisha and the others looked at each other, and their expressions suddenly became heavy. Baram Alliance, an alliance formed by the 3 most powerful dark guilds that control the entire continent. The strongest in this alliance, the Grimoire Heart, had recently abducted all the magic shooters of the fairy tale, almost causing the fairy tale to disintegrate. If it wasn't for the fact that there was something in the fairy tale that even Hades was afraid of, the fairy tale might have been destroyed by Hades at that time. And there are 2 other dark guilds that are on the same level as Grimoire Heart in the Baram Alliance. Thinking of this, I believe anyone would feel heavy in their heart. At that time, Hades, who led Grimoire Heart, even came directly to Magnolia. Noah looked around at everyone. So, I'm worried, did the other 2 dark guilds of the Baram Alliance also start to take action? No way. Lucy laughed dryly. So far, I haven't heard of any news of such dark guilds appearing. No, Noah's worry is not without reason. Elisha's face tensed up. Even the Grimoire Heart has brazenly come to Magnolia. It's not surprising that the other 2 dark guilds in the Balam Alliance would make a move. Not long ago, the guild leader went out for a meeting. That meeting was attended by the guild leaders of the major guilds. I think it's very likely to be a discussion about this matter. That's not necessarily the case. At that time, we'll probably have a difficult crusade mission to carry out, right? Gray narrowed his eyes. For example, dealing with the dark guilds of the Baram Alliance. That one sentence made the entire atmosphere at the scene turn solemn. No way. Lucy was in tears. A Grimoire Heart already caused such a big problem for our guild. Do we still have to deal with 2 dark guilds of the same level? Oof. I don't care about the Baram Alliance. Naz stood up and stepped on the table with one foot. His fist was burning with flames, and an excited smile hung on his face. It's best if they all come out together. Let me send them flying in one breath. However, an old voice sounded at this time, responding to Naz's words. It's impossible for all of them, but it's still possible for one of them. Chapter 10:37. It's impossible to complete all of them, but it's still possible to complete one of them. When such an aged voice resounded and spread throughout the entire fairy tale, the originally noisy fairy tale instantly quieted down. Noah and the others all turned their gazes towards the source of the voice. From a direction of fairy tale's entrance, a short and old figure slowly walked in. Seeing the short and old figure, Elisha and the others stood up. President. Surprisingly, it was Makarov. Noah also stood up, looking at the short figure slowly walking in from outside the entrance. He couldn't help but call out, "Grandpa Noah." Makarov looked in Noah's direction and suddenly smiled. "You're back? How's the mission?" "Yes, although it took some time, it was successfully completed." Noah suppressed the excitement in his heart and nodded. "There were no accidents, don't worry." "That's good." Makarov breathed a sigh of relief. "Well, if it's you, a mission of that level shouldn't have any problems." Regarding Noah's strength, Makarov was more and more unable to see through him. However, even if he couldn't see through him, Makarov knew that Noah definitely wouldn't disappoint him. Not to mention, Noah didn't accept any extremely difficult mission. It wasn't even an S-rank mission. Even Kilda's accepted the scariest 100-year mission. Noah, whose strength was even higher than Kilda's, wouldn't be able to complete a mission that wasn't even an S-rank mission. That would be abnormal. Of course, it didn't rule out the possibility of accidents happening. Mira and Lisina also came out from behind the bar. "President." Mira gave Makarov a signature sweet smile. "Is a regular meeting over?" "It's over." Makarov sighed. "However, it's slightly troublesome." "What's wrong?" Lisina hurriedly asked. "Did something happen?" Guild leader Alusha also stepped forward and spoke in a deep voice. "Is it related to what you just said? That sentence just now?" Lucy swallowed her saliva and asked fearfully, "Don't tell me they're really planning to crusade against the 3 dark guilds of the Baram Alliance?" Noah also remembered what Makarov had said when he came in. He also looked at Makarov. "Grandpa, did something happen? I believe all of you have already guessed the general situation." Makarov raised his head, his wrinkled face filled with a solemn expression. "Due to the Council's disbandment, many dark guilds have become active during this period. However, the various large guilds have also suppressed many of these dark guilds. Now, only a few extremely powerful dark guilds remain." As he said this, Makarov looked around at the entire fairy tale sorcerer. Just recently, during the regular meeting, the news of the Baram Alliance's dark guilds starting their activities was finally confirmed. "So, do we really have to start the crusade against the Baram Alliance's dark guilds?" Nash shouted excitedly. "Great. Great your head." Gray was not as brainless as Nas. He couldn't help but click his tongue. "Those are the 3 most powerful guilds. How can our guild take them down by ourselves? Even if there was only one dark guild, it would be extremely difficult for any of the Baram Alliance's dark guilds to suppress it. Otherwise, the Baram Alliance wouldn't be known as the underworld that dominated the entire continent. Although Fairy Tale was recognized as the #1 guild in the Fiori Kingdom, it was undoubtedly a fool's dream to take down the entire Baram Alliance with just one guild. Not to mention the others, just Grimoire Heart was enough to make them suffer. Not to mention the other 2 dark guilds that were on the same level as Grimoire Heart. In this way, not to mention the others, even Alusha and Mira felt that it was completely impossible and had a difficult expression. Only no one noticed the details. "Grandpa, you just said that it is impossible to take down all of them, but it is still possible to take down one of them, right?" Noah's heart moved. There should only be one dark guild that has been confirmed to be active in the Baram Alliance, right? After Noah said this, everyone also realized this point. "You're right." Makarov confirmed Noah's words. The one that has been confirmed to be active is one of the 3 dark guilds of the Baram Alliance. 6 demon generals, Oration Cease. Hearing the name of the guild, not only the others, even Noah was stunned for a moment. 6 demon generals, Oration Cease. One of the 3 dark guilds of the Baram Alliance. Just like Grimoire Heart. Grimoire Heart was one of the strongest guilds in the Dark Guild. However, this Dark Guild was different from the average Dark Guild and even the Light Guild. It was said that in this Dark Guild, there were only 6 members in the entire guild. There were even rumors that the guild master of this Dark Guild once declared that he would not accept any more members. Therefore, it was called 6 Demon Generals Oration Cease. Of course, to be called one of the 3 strongest Dark Guilds with only 6 members, one could imagine how strong those 6 members were. In this regular meeting, the various large guilds have already reached a consensus. They all believe that this is a good opportunity to eradicate one of the three dark guilds of the Baram Alliance, Makarov said in a loud voice. Therefore, we have decided to form an alliance and crusade against 6 demon generals, Oration Seas. Alliance? Noah said in surprise. Alliance? Mira, Alusha, and the others were also surprised. After all, the enemy this time is one of the corners of the Baram Alliance. If we carry out the crusade alone, firstly, it is very likely to cause heavy casualties. Secondly, even if we succeed, we may be targeted by the Baram Alliance alone. It is very dangerous. Makarov shook his head. Therefore, we must form an alliance and have Fairy Tale, Blue Pegasus, Lamia Scale, and Cat Shelter. These 4 major guilds jointly crusade against 6 demon generals, Oration Seas. Fairy Tale, Blue Pegasus, Lamia Scale, Cat Shelter. No matter which guild it was, they were all considered to be one of the top guilds in the entire Fiori Kingdom. With these 4 guilds jointly crusading against 6 demon generals, it was indeed a lot more reassuring. And when everyone felt a little relieved, Noah's heart was raised instead. Cat Shelter? He remembered that Mishgang once said that Wendy was in Cat Shelter, right? While Noah was lost in thought, Makarov had already begun to give orders. This time, the 4 major guilds are acting together. We also need to send a small team. Moreover, if the opponent is one of the corners of the Baram Alliance, we must send an S-rank sorcerer. Makarov looked at Alusha. Alusha, you take Naz, Gray, and Lucy with you. I understand. Alusha responded heavily. I will let everyone return safely. Okay. Naz was so excited that he began to spit fire. I'm burning up. Really? The corners of Gray's mouth slowly rose. There's no other way. Lucy was almost in tears. Do I have to go too? Lucy. Even Harpy complained. Can you be any more cowardly? At this time, Noah raised his head and said to Makarov, Grandpa, let me join too. Chapter 10:38. Grandpa, let me join too. When these words came out of Noah's mouth, all the attention of Fairy Tale immediately focused on Noah. Noah. Mira was stunned. Big brother Noah? Lisana also looked at Noah in a daze. You want to join too? Even Makarov was slightly stunned and then hesitated. It wasn't that Makarov was worried that something would happen to Noah. Everyone already knew what kind of strength Noah had. Back then, the guild leader of Grimoire Heart, Hades, had almost put Makarov, one of the top 10 Saint Magi, in danger with just one attack. One could imagine his strength. Noah, on the other hand, fought to a draw with Hades in front of all the magic shooters from Fairy Tale. Even Alusha, Naz, Gray, and even Lucy could participate in this crusade mission. With such strength, Noah naturally had the qualifications to participate. However, in the eyes of Fairy Tale's people, Noah was the next guild leader that Makarov had decided on. As the next guild leader, everyone naturally didn't think that Noah would want to participate in the crusade mission. Especially Makarov, who had originally planned to hide Noah for a period of time until the new council was formed before letting Noah go out. After all, the current magic world was quite turbulent. Some time ago, even Hades had directly made an appearance with the sole purpose of meeting Noah, a talent that Eurulia had praised endlessly. If Noah were to go out and show his face again, Makarov was worried that Noah would be targeted by others. Noah didn't know if it was because he saw Makarov's worry, but he smiled slightly. Grandpa, you don't have to worry. Since there are 4 big guilds attacking together, and Alusha is also there, then I won't do anything unless it's necessary. If Alusha and the others can solve it, then I'll just go and watch the show. If not, then I'll be there and be a safeguard. After saying that, Noah narrowed his eyes. Moreover, since the opponent is one of the 3 dark guilds of the Baram Alliance, then the people in the Oration Seas should more or less have information about the Grimoire Heart. If it's possible, I want to go there. Hearing Noah's words, how could everyone not understand Noah's plan? Could it be? Mira asked with some uncertainty. Noah, you want to get information about Grimoire Heart from Oration Seas? That's right. Noah didn't hide his thoughts and said bluntly, Hades once said that he would destroy Fairy Tale. Then, sooner or later, we will have to face that enemy. Reaching out a hand and holding it tightly, Noah's smile became slightly cold. I like to see what qualifications he has to say this. Last time, one of the reasons why Noah left Fairy Tale and left this world was to continue looking for world fragments. The second reason was because Hades' words had caused her to feel a sense of crisis. She urgently wanted to increase her strength to protect her Fairy Tale and protect her home. Now, compared to the time when he fought with Hades, Noah lacked crush magic and the soul weapon called Blaze. However, compared to that time, the current Noah was only stronger. Even though he had just returned to this world and hadn't stayed for a full month, so he couldn't use his authority for the time being, Noah still had the Gate of Babylon, the Demon Slayer, and the LV for level of grace, so he couldn't be mentioned in the same breath. Now, Noah was confident that even if he didn't use Gate of Babylon, magic, he could easily kill Hades with just his LV, for ability value and the power of Demon Slayer. That's right, not defeat but kill. After all, Noah still had the curse resistance. Hades' magic was no longer effective against Noah. And without magic, a magic shooter was equivalent to a tiger that had its teeth and claws pulled out and had been drugged. It could only be slaughtered. Since this was the case, Noah wouldn't let Hades secretly have ideas about Fairy Tale. If there was a chance, Noah would definitely kill Hades. Moreover, this time, in the alliance of the 4 major guilds, there was still the existence of Cat Shelter. Noah wanted to know how Wendy was doing now. Makarov didn't know the reason behind it. He thought that Noah only wanted to inquire about Hades and Grimoire Heart. After pondering for a moment, he nodded. That's good. Since President Precto. No, it should be said that Hades has always been hostile towards Fairy Tale. Then we will have to face them sooner or later. If we can get some information, then it will be beneficial for us. What he meant was that Makarov agreed to Noah's participation. Good. Grace suddenly became excited. With Noah and Alusha, then there will be no mistakes. That's great. Lucy also breathed a sigh of relief. With Noah, it will definitely be much smoother. There's no need for Noah to do anything. Even Alusha doesn't need to do anything. I alone will be enough. Naz boasted shamelessly. I must beat up one of the 3 major dark guilds. Don't talk nonsense. Alusha fiercely knocked Naz's head. Noah still has other quests to do. If possible, it would be best if we can take care of the crusade quests. Love. Abby flew into the air and danced with joy. Anyway, with Noah here, at least we won't be eaten. Why would we be eaten? Lucy ridiculed. Even if it's a dark guild, they won't eat people, right? Lucy. Abby squinted his eyes and looked at Lucy with disdain. You really don't understand the romance of men. No. I've also never heard of the romance of men eating people. Lucy facepalmed. By the way, didn't you say you were a cat? Now you're human? Seeing that the atmosphere was gradually becoming cheerful again, Noah couldn't help but laugh. It was at this time that Noah felt one of his hands being tightly hugged. Big brother Noah. Lysana seemed to have forgotten her anger from before and worriedly said, Are you okay? Don't worry. Noah gently stroked Lysana's head and comforted her. It's not like you don't know my strength. Nothing will happen. Then remember to be careful. Lysana still seemed a little worried. Don't force yourself. Lysana is right. Mira came to Noah's other side and hugged Noah's hand as well. She looked at Noah with ripples in her eyes. Don't force yourself. Feeling his 2 fiancées hugging his arms so tightly, it was as if they were trying to turn their worries into strength so that Noah could feel it clearly. Unable to free his hands, Noah could only nod heavily at Mira and Lysana. Mira and Lysana didn't know the extent of Noah's strength. But even if they knew, the 2 girls would still be worried. After all, Noah's position in their hearts was so important that even a short moment of loss would be unbearable. So, no matter how powerful Noah was, as Noah's current lover and future family, both Mira and Lysana would still be worried when it was time to do so. Realizing this, Noah withdrew his hands and hugged the two girls tightly. Mira and Lisina immediately hugged him back. Instantly, the three of them were immersed in the warmth. Chapter 1039. The sky was blue, and there were no clouds in sight. Compared to the dark clouds and heavy rain yesterday, it was simply the opposite of the extreme. Whoosh! At a certain moment, accompanied by a sharp sound of breaking through the air, an extremely gorgeous flying ship suddenly shot out from the other side, leaving behind two long jets of light. Like a stream of light flashing through the sky, it cut through the sky at an extremely fast speed, flying to the other side of the distant horizon. Taking a closer look, it turned out to be a flying ship made of bright gold and emerald gems. There was a throne in the center. It looked like a small plane, but it was thousands or tens of thousands of times more gorgeous than an ordinary plane. And on this extremely gorgeous airship, there were many figures. It was the fairy tale team composed of Noah, Alusha, Naz, Gray, Lucy, and Hubby. They were about to participate in the crusade against the 6 demon generals, Oration Cease. Undoubtedly, the airship was flying at a speed that could even match that of fighter jet. Noah and his party, who were riding on the gorgeous airship, didn't feel any strong pressure or wind at all. It was as if they were on flat ground. Only their hair was fluttering in the wind, which looked incredible. In fact, Alusha, Lucy, and Gray were really in a state of disbelief. Alusha was standing on the edge of the airship, looking down. What she saw was a terrifying height that almost made her dizzy, and the scenery that was flying backward at a rapid speed, which made Alusha's emotions somewhat stirred. To travel at such a speed, we are not affected in the slightest. This is too inconceivable. Are these really all gold and gems? Lucy, on the other hand, was touching and looking left and right. Looking at the dazzling gold and emeralds that made up the entire airship, she was completely stunned. How rich must they be to be so extravagant? Love. Even Hubby was a little surprised. Naz, come and see. It's all gold and gems. However, Nazi, who had no idea what to do with transportation, couldn't care less about it. He lay on the ground, and his whole face was pale. He looked like he wanted to vomit, but couldn't. He kept groaning. Eyes are rolling, really useless. Gray glanced at Naz. Then he looked in the direction of the throne. But where did you get such an extravagant and unbelievable thing? Hearing that, Noah, who was sitting on the throne and looking at the performance of Alusha, Lucy, Naz, Gray, and Hubby, shrugged and smiled without saying a word. It's not that Noah didn't want to explain, but it was too troublesome to explain, because this incredible airship was one of the many treasures in Noah's treasure house. Vimanas. It was recorded in the 2 major narrative poems of ancient India, Ramayana and Mahabharata. It only existed in ancient Indian myths and legends. It had the ability to travel in the sky. It had a strong body like a huge bird. Most of the materials were pure gold and precious gems. It was driven by solar energy generated by mercury-driven sun crystals. It could ignore the laws of physics and fly at high speed. To put it simply, this was a treasure that was no different from a fighter jet. Riding on this treasure, not only could it fly freely in the sky, but it could also move freely in the boundless ocean. Even on this airship, it was equipped with various treasure systems and even equipped with excellent weapons such as ancient nuclear warheads. It had extremely powerful attack power. Therefore, it was not an exaggeration to call this airship treasure named Vimanas a fighter jet. Of course, in terms of practicality and destructive power, this Vimanas was far stronger than the average fighter jet. However, Noah wasn't using it for battle at this moment. He was only using it for traveling. It had only been less than an hour since they departed from Fairy Tale. An hour ago, Alusha and the others who had packed their luggage found Noah. They discussed with Noah about what kind of transportation they should use to get to the rendezvous point. Then there was no then. In the end, Noah took out the Vimanas. Alusha and the others were dumbstruck. He invited everyone on board and rushed to the rendezvous point as fast as possible. Taking out the map, Noah looked at the rendezvous point marked by Makarov. It was the place marked with a cross on the map. He said to Alusha, "This rendezvous point seems to be prepared by Blue Pegasus, right? It seems to be a villa owned by the guild leader of Blue Pegasus." Alusha walked over and laid on Noah's body without any scruples. She used her heavily armored hand to point at the area marked with a cross on the map. This area is all forest. We also call it the Sea of Trees. It is said that Oration Cease is active in this area. The guild leader of Blue Pegasus happens to have a villa in this Sea of Trees, so he provided it for us to use. So, the people of Blue Pegasus should be there in advance to prepare, right? Gray was half naked. He put his hands in his pockets and walked towards Noah and Alusha. Originally, the rendezvous time was supposed to be in the afternoon, but with our current speed, we should be there soon, right? By the way, what kind of people will the other 3 guilds send? Lucy reluctantly withdrew her gaze from the gold and gems that made up the airship and asked everyone, "Since our guild even sent Noah and Alusha, then the people from the other 3 guilds should also be very powerful, right? After all, no matter which one it is, they're all famous guilds in Fiore." Gray nodded in agreement. Blue Pegasus and Lamia Scale both have very powerful sorcerers. Especially Lamia Scale, there are even people who are stronger than Alusha. Stronger than Alusha? Lucy's eyes widened. No way, right? Being in the same team as Alusha, Lucy already had a certain understanding of Alusha's strength. Frankly speaking, in Lucy's opinion, it could not be said that there were no sorcerers who could be stronger than Alusha. But so far, Lucy had not seen many of them with her own eyes. Therefore, in Lucy's opinion, the fact that there were sorcerers who were stronger than Alusha in other guilds was very surprising in itself. "There are many people who are stronger than me, Lucy. Don't underestimate the other guilds," Alusha said methodically. "Whether it's Blue Pegasus or Lamia Scale, they both have very powerful sorcerers. Although I also think that it's already very good for the other guilds to have one sorcerer who is stronger than you." Gray scratched his head. "But I don't seem to have heard of any strong sorcerers in Cat Shelter." Hearing Gray's words, Noah reacted a little. Right at this moment, Hubby suddenly yelled in a panic in front of him. "Everyone, look in front." Noah and the others turned their heads and looked in front. They were immediately stunned. They saw that on the distant horizon in front of them, a dark shadow was gradually expanding. No, it wasn't expanding. It was the airship that was approaching at an extremely fast speed. "Whoa!" Lucy and Hubby both screamed out in shock. "We're going to hit it." Noah reacted and hurriedly controlled the airship. Whoosh! At the critical moment, the extremely gorgeous flying ship suddenly made an extremely thrilling arc, brushing past the edge of the black shadow, and rushed higher into the sky. Chapter 1040. Whoosh! Amidst the extremely sharp sound of the wind, the golden airship, named Vimanas, seemed to intend to rush out of the universe. It soared into the sky in a vertical manner, causing the surrounding air to swirl up like a violent gale. On the Vimanas, except for Noah, who was sitting on the throne, Alusha, Lucy, Gray, and Hubby, who were originally standing there casually, were almost thrown off by the airship that suddenly changed direction and soared vertically into the sky, causing them to let out screams. Fortunately, Alusha and Gray were not ordinary people. When the Vimanas soared vertically into the sky, they immediately reacted and laid down on the deck, tightly grabbing onto some of the protruding edges, preventing them from being thrown off. Naz! Hubby immediately spread out a pair of wings and flew directly onto the Vimanas, grabbing onto the defenseless Naz. However, Hubby just happened to grab onto Naz's scarf, causing Naz, who was already pale due to the transportation, to turn ashen, and he almost foamed at the mouth. Only Lucy, whose physical ability was not much better than an ordinary girl, was unable to react in time. Her feet had already left the Vimana's deck, and she screamed as she fell downwards. "Lucy!" Alusha and Gray exclaimed at the same time. "Why am I the only one?" Lucy, on the other hand, let out a tearless cry. Her whole body flopped a few times as if she was swimming in water. Unfortunately, it was of no use. Just as Lucy was about to fall off the Vimana's deck and be thrown off, a hand suddenly reached out from the throne and grabbed onto Lucy's hand. Lucy, who thought she was completely done for, raised her head and looked at Noah, who was sitting on the throne, tightly grabbing on her hand, and cried out. No. Noah did not have the spare energy to respond to Lucy's words. He was trying his best to control the Vimanas, making it turn around. Whoosh! In the sky, the golden airship drew a perfect arc, and from a vertical state, it suddenly turned around, causing friction with the air, and in the whistling sound of the wind, it turned straight. After that, the golden airship, named Vimanas, slowly came to a stop and hovered in midair, no longer moving. Ha! 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 Alusha, Gray, Naz, and Hubby all sat on the ground in an instant, as if they had just survived a disaster, and gasped for breath. Noah also got up from the throne and placed Lucy, who was in his arms, on the deck, and let out a sigh of relief. Luckily, it was a close call. There was almost a traffic accident in the sky. Lucy also had some lingering fear, patting her full chest, and with some sweat on her delicate face, she forced a smile on Noah. Thank you, Noah. Don't thank me, Noah said with a bitter smile. The one who almost made you fall was me. That's not your fault. Lucy waved her hand and shook her head, then complained. It's all that black shadow's fault. Then what is it? Gray stood up with difficulty, his face still a little ugly. It almost got us killed. After Gray said this, the rest of the people came to their senses, and all of them gathered at the edge of the Vimanas, looking down. Because the Vimanas had ascended vertically for quite a distance, everyone could only see a black shadow hovering in the sky below. They were simply unable to see its body clearly. Thus, Noah controlled the Vimanas and gradually lowered its altitude. However, just as Noah and the rest were gradually able to see the true face of the black shadow, a voice suddenly resounded, as if it was amplified by a microphone, and suddenly resounded in the sky. Visitors on an unknown magic airship, please report your name. If you don't tell us your origin, we will most likely treat you as an enemy and shoot you down. Hearing this voice, Noah's eyes flashed. Alusha, Lucy, Gray, and the rest were shocked, and then they reacted. There's someone on that black shadow? Just as this thought surfaced in their minds, on the gradually descending Vimanas, everyone was finally able to see the full appearance of the black shadow below. It was actually a warship that was built in the shape of a horse, as if it was a Pegasus flying in the sky. Moreover, it was a warship that had the ability to fly. That is, Alusha, Lucy, and Gray were all surprised. Magic explosive airship? Magic explosive airship? Noah was slightly startled, and then he remembered. Magic explosive airship. Simply put, it was a type of magic airship that had the ability to drop bombs in the air. This type of airship not only had the ability to fly, but was also equipped with powerful magic weapons. It was a tool that could be used in the military. In other words, it was a warship that had the same function as the Vimanas. A Pegasus-shaped magic explosive airship? Alusha seemed to have thought of something. Could it be Christina of the Blue Pegasus? Coincidentally, Noah and Gray also thought of the same thing. Only Lucy had a confused look on her face. Christina? What's that? Lucy, haven't you heard of it? Hubby grabbed Naz's collar and said while flying in the air. Christina is a magic explosive airship of the Blue Pegasus. That guild is most famous in the Fiori Kingdom for having such a magic explosive airship. Lucy exclaimed in surprise. In other words, the thing that almost caused us to have a traffic accident in the sky was the Blue Pegasus. Noah couldn't help but laugh out loud. But it's not an enemy. Let's go down. Alusha made a decisive decision. Now, the allied forces of the 4 major guilds are gathering. The Dark Guild of the Baram Alliance is also active nearby. If we appear here on an unknown flying tool, it's very likely that the Blue Pegasus will attack us. Everyone immediately nodded. The Vimanas that was floating in the air trembled, and 2 jets of light shot out from its back. With a spin, it descended towards the magic explosive airship named Christina. Noah only stopped the Vimanas when it was less than 10 meters above the magic explosive airship. Noah, Alusha, and Gray looked at each other. Then, without any hesitation, they jumped down towards the deck of the magic explosive airship. Hubby grabbed Naz's scarf. He didn't care about Naz's face becoming more and more green, and even started to turn white. He flapped his wings and flew down. Lucy, who was the only one left, secretly swallowed a mouthful of saliva and shouted in despair. "I don't care anymore." Lucy threw caution to the wind and jumped down. Unlike Noah's Vimanas, the deck of the magic explosive airship named Christina was made of wood. After jumping down from the sky, Noah and the others steadily landed on the deck. They stepped on the wooden floor and looked around. A dash! A scream came from above. Hearing the scream, Noah almost subconsciously raised his head and looked up. In the end, he saw a beautiful scene. At the same time, Lucy, who fell from the sky, hit the ground while screaming. However, she didn't care about the pain. She covered her skirt and looked at Noah with a red face. You saw it?" Hearing this, Noah could only laugh dryly. "You dash." At this moment, a cold wind started to blow. Chapter 1041. A gust of cold wind suddenly rolled up without any warning, carrying a violent snowstorm. Like a wave, it suddenly shrouded Noah and his party, who landed on the deck. It was like a tornado made of wind and snow was violently attacking in the direction of Noah and his party. Danger! Alusha reacted first. With a leap, she protected Lucy, Habby, and Naz, who was still dizzy, behind her. Gray simply took a step forward. Instead of retreating, he charged forward. His body suddenly surged with a burst of cold air that was even denser than the ice and snow tornado. Under Gray's control, it gathered in his hand. "Even if it's snow, freeze it for me." In Gray's shout, the amazing coldness burst out from his raised palm, turning into bursts of turbulence that swept towards the violent snowstorm. Kacha, kacha, kacha. Suddenly, the snowstorm swept by the cold air from Gray's hand began to freeze. After a while, it condensed into ice dregs and fell to the ground. Seeing this scene, Noah, who was guarding at the back, was surprised. Gray actually froze the snowstorm. Moreover, looking at the degree of magic power surging around Gray's body like a storm, it was clearly stronger than before. It seems that in the month when Noah left this world, Gray seems to have been tempered in the long crusade mission like Alusha and become stronger than before. If this continues, it is estimated that in another 1 or 2 years, Gray will definitely be able to reach the level of an S-rank Archmage, right? Obviously, when Noah didn't know, Gray was also growing smoothly in his own way. And it was definitely not just Gray. Including Naz, the rest of the friends in Fairy Tale must have had their own growth. This fact was told to Noah. He was not the only one who was constantly getting stronger. The person who attacked Noah and the others didn't seem to expect this result and exclaimed in surprise, You actually froze my snow?" Noah and his party immediately raised their eyes and looked ahead. There, a figure quietly appeared without them knowing. He also stretched out a hand in the direction of Noah and others, and a tornado mixed with snowflakes was rolling in his hand. Needless to say, it was this person who had just attacked Noah and others. Gray was about to step forward, but he was stopped by Noah. Looking at the figure who stretched out his hand and launched an attack, Noah suddenly spoke. Could it be that this is how the Blue Pegasus entertains its guests? As soon as his voice fell, "This is really rude." With such a sentence, 2 other figures also quietly appeared in front of the deck and stood together with the previous figure. As Gray withdrew his magic, the ice shards that fell on the ground suddenly evaporated, making a strange sound and slowly disappearing. In front of them, the 3 figures who had gathered together walked out of the shadows and appeared in front of Noah and the others. They were 3 rather young teenagers. "Hello." The young man standing in the middle bent down, as if inviting a woman to dance, appearing very polite. I am Xiang of Blue Pegasus. Please allow me to introduce myself. The short young man, standing on the left, also bowed. I am Ivan of Blue Pegasus. Although you came uninvited, we still have to give you a little welcome. The dark-skinned young man standing on the right crossed his arms, but his movements did not lose their elegance, and said with closed eyes, I am Lotus of Blue Pegasus. The three Blue Pegasus magic shooters who introduced themselves one by one, as if they were acting in a stage play, and as if acting cool was an instinct, they simultaneously revealed a handsome smile to Noah and the others. It had to be said that these three Blue Pegasus magic shooters indeed had good looks. Although their movements seemed to have some unnecessary postures, there was a kind of sparkling feeling. It was believed that some pure and innocent girls would be very fond of this type of man, right? For example, Lucy. So handsome. Lucy couldn't help but murmur, and then immediately reacted. She shook her head and stammered to the three Blue Pegasus magic shooters. Why did you attack us? The one who answered Lucy's question was not the three Blue Pegasus magic shooters, but Alusha, who was protecting Lucy behind her. This is also something that can't be helped. If it were me, and someone suddenly appeared on my guild's magic explosive airship, I would also take down the opponent first. Alusha looked straight ahead. Am I right? Oh, the young man named Xiang looked at Alusha. Are you Alusha Shukalito of Fairy Queen? Alusha Shukalito? Ivan's eyes lit up. Fairy tales, Fairy Queen? So that's how it is. You are Fairy Queen? The young man who called himself Lotus also cast his gaze on Alusha, and then swept his gaze over the others. In other words, you are the magic shooters of fairy tale? Under Lotus's inquiry, Alusha did not speak, but turned her gaze to Noah, who was quietly watching. Noticing Alusha's gaze, Noah nodded and also did not speak. He just raised his right hand, exposing the back of his hand in front of the three Blue Pegasus magic shooters. Noah's hands were branded with an imprint on the back of each hand. The back of his left hand was branded with the proof of the contract with Aster, the elven imprint. The back of his right hand was branded with the fairy tale guild emblem. Seeing Noah's action, Alusha, Gray, and Lucy understood one after another. Immediately, Alusha slightly undid the shoulder armor on her left arm, exposing the dark blue guild emblem branded not far from her shoulder. Gray pointed to the guild emblem branded on his chest. Like Noah, Lucy also raised her right hand, revealing the emblem branded on the same position as Noah's. Seeing this, Xiang, Ivan, and Lotus looked at each other. It seems that you are indeed members of Fairy Tale. However, is that magic floating airship also a property of your guild? Echo extended his hand and pointed at the golden airship hovering in the sky. We've never heard of such a thing in Fairy Tale, have we? Hearing Xiang's words, Noah smiled faintly. That is my personal item. It has nothing to do with Fairy Tale. After that, Noah raised a hand. A huge golden ripple appeared in front of Vamana's and rippled out. The airship, which was made of bright gold and emerald gems, immediately vibrated and flew toward the golden ripples. In the next second, as if it had entered water, it stirred up a circle of ripples and entered the golden ripples, disappearing without a trace. At this time, Noah stepped forward and said to the three sorcerers of Blue Pegasus, Sorry, we came a little early. Can you let us see your person in charge first? Not knowing if it was because they were shocked by Noah's inconceivable means, Xiang, Lotus, and Ivan nodded at the same time, retreated to the shadows, and opened a door on the deck. Please come this way. Lord Ia is waiting for you inside. Noah nodded. However, at the side, Alusha's expression suddenly froze. Yeah. Chapter 1042. Noah, who was about to follow the three magic shooters from Blue Pegasus into the inner room, noticed that something was wrong with Alusha. Alusha? Noah asked doubtfully. What's wrong with you? I'm fine. Although Alusha said that she couldn't adjust her stiff face no matter what. In the end, She even began to break out in cold sweat. Gray, Lucy, and even Nazi, who was still dizzy, twitched their mouths because of Alusha's behavior, and they couldn't help but take a step back. Nah. Lucy's mouth twitched again and again, and she also broke out in cold sweat. Alusha isn't afraid, is she? You? What are you talking about? Gray said with a smile, but that smile was extremely stiff. That's Alusha, the Alusha who is not afraid of anything. How can she be afraid? However, as if she wanted to make the final rejection of Gray's extremely reluctant words, Alusha's body began to tremble. This time, even Gray and Lucy were afraid. As long as one was a member of Fairy Tale, it was impossible for them not to know how ferocious Alusha was. Just like what Gray said, in the past, it was only others who were afraid of Alusha. When was it Alusha's turn to be afraid of others? Nazi and Gray were scared to death of Alusha, and even Lucy understood the fierce and terrifying side of Alusha's inner heart after a long time of getting along with her. Even if they usually talked and laughed, once Alusha got angry, the only one who ran the fastest was Lucy. However, that fierce and terrifying Alusha was trembling at this moment. It was obvious that she was afraid of something. Even Noah couldn't help but be concerned about Alusha's reaction. At that moment, Noah stretched out a hand and put it on Alusha's shoulder and said in a deep voice while exerting a little force, "Alusha, what's wrong?" Not sure if it was Noah's voice that woke up Alusha, who was immersed in fear, but Alusha turned her head with a stiff neck and looked at Noah. Immediately, she took a slow breath and grabbed Noah's hand. "Sorry, Noah. I know you just want to be a safeguard by our side, and you have more important tasks, but I have to face one night. Please spare me." Hearing this, Noah understood. Alusha was actually afraid of the person called One Night. Then what is the origin of that one night? Lucy asked in a trembling voice. Even Alusha is afraid of him? No way. Gray swallowed a mouthful of saliva. I've never heard of anyone more terrifying than Alusha in Blue Pegasus. Naz, I'm so scared. Habby almost cried and tugged at Naz's scarf. I want to go back. Ugh. Naz, whose face was getting more and more pale, could only make a soft sound. I saw the kingdom of heaven. Only Noah, while feeling puzzled, also became somewhat serious. Who was that person One Night? He. Alusha didn't know whether it was because she didn't dare to comment or because she didn't know how to comment. After stuttering for a long time, she took a deep breath. As a magic shooter, I admit that he's indeed quite outstanding, but as a human, I think I can't accept someone like him biologically. The inexplicable speech from Alusha made Noah and the others look at each other, and at the same time, they were even more puzzled. What the hell is this? In short, since One Night is here, you will understand when you see him. Alusha rubbed her temples as if she had a headache. But if possible, Noah, later on if necessary, you must make a move. Don't let him pester me. After leaving such a sentence, Alusha mustered up her courage and walked forward. She looked like a soldier who was ready to see blood on the battlefield. Noah was really starting to be curious. In Blue Pegasus, there was actually a magic shooter who could make Alusha show such an expression and performance. It seemed that the people sent by Blue Pegasus to join the Alliance were a bit amazing. Noah, who was holding this thought, didn't know. 3 minutes later, he realized how foolish and naive he was at this time. Naive to the point that Noah wanted to strangle himself at this time. Under the lead of the 3 magic shooters of Blue Pegasus, Noah and the others walked into the interior of the magic explosive airship named Christina and came to a room that looked like a bar. After walking in front, Xiang, Lotus, and Ivan entered the room. Their attitude immediately changed from pretentious to respectful. They bowed in the direction of the bar and saluted. "Lord One Night, the people from Fairy Tale are here." After saying that, a voice sounded. Fairy Tale? It was a voice that only a mature man with a very magnetic and charismatic voice could have. That magic airship just now belongs to Fairy Tale. Accompanied by such a voice, from the direction of the bar, an unusually tall and handsome figure holding a wine glass full of red wine walked out. Seeing that figure, Elusha, who had previously mustered up a lot of courage, directly twitched the corner of her eyes. Her entire delicate body stiffened, and she couldn't move at all. Seeing Elusha like this, Gray and Lucy's hearts began to beat faster, and they stared at the figure closely. That's the person that even Elusha is afraid of? Gray and Lucy were completely nervous. Even Noah narrowed his eyes slightly, watching the figure slowly walking out of the darkness. However, as time passed and the figure got closer and closer, Noah, Gray, and Lucy all felt that something was wrong, because the figure of the figure was actually shrinking bit by bit. In the end, it even became as short as a child. At this time, Noah noticed that figure only looked tall and handsome under the effect of the light. Then, as the figure got closer, the effect of the light began to disappear. In the next moment, the owner of the short figure was exposed in front of Noah and the others. Oh! With an extremely magnetic and charming voice, the owner of the voice was a man who was less than 5 meters tall. His body was bloated, and he had a face that was no different from Pancake. His face was covered in pores, and his facial features were pieced together to create a face that made people despair. Isn't this Miss Elusha? This is truly a meeting of fate. Gray and Lucy, who originally thought that the other party was a big shot because of Elusha's reaction, looked at the ugly man who posed in a pose that he thought was very handsome. But now, their faces were twisted. Not to mention Gray and Lucy. Even Noah's eyes couldn't help but almost pop out of their sockets. The previous curiosity and expectation combined with a huge gap at this moment. The cruel scene called reality made his heart clench and his head almost explode. Under such circumstances, the other party actually cast his gaze in the direction of Noah. Then he opened his big nostrils and sniffed Noah's body. Oh, this strange smell. Could it be that you are? Noah didn't hear the rest of the words. Noah could not hold himself back at all when he saw the other party widening his nostrils and moving his unique face closer to Noah's body and sniffing him bit by bit. So Noah exploded. Boo! Without any hesitation, Noah spun around and threw out a kick. Amidst a strong gust of wind, he kicked out heavily. Bang! Amidst a resounding muffled sound, Noah's foot directly sunk into Iye's face that was filled with pores and beard, deeply sinking in that unique face. Man, with a peculiar catchphrase, he flew out in one night. Chapter 1043. It had to be said that before Noah made his move, no one present was able to react in time. When everyone present began to react, Iye was already sent flying by Noah's heavy kick. His bloated body bounced on the ground several times like a rubber ball before crashing into a wall, causing the wall to crack. Master Iye! The three handsome archmages from the Blue Pegasus were shocked and immediately glared at Noah's direction. How dare you attack our senior Iye? How dare you send our teacher, Iye, flying? How dare you do such a thing to our boss, Iye? The three archmages from the Blue Pegasus spoke in unison, leaving Lucy speechless. Just a moment ago, they were calling him master, and now they were calling him senior, teacher, and boss. Is that the person in charge of you? Noah's face was ashen as he showed a fake smile to Xiong, Lotus, and Ivan. So the person in charge of the Blue Pegasus has a hobby of sniffing people he just met? That's not a hobby, Xiong corrected him righteously. That's just Senior Iye's way of greeting people. A way of greeting people? Gray and Lucy's eyelids began to twitch. As archmages who had to travel all over the continent all day to carry out missions, they had seen many ways of greeting people. However, whether it was Gray or Lucy, they could say with absolute certainty that no one would use such a way of greeting people. Not to mention, the person who used such a way of greeting people had a very unique face. Not to mention Noah, it was believed that if it were anyone else, if they were sniffed by Knight's big nostrils as soon as they met, they would definitely act like Noah and directly attack. It was no longer a matter of disgust, but a conditioned reflex of the body. At this moment, Iye, who was embedded in the wall with his arms and legs spread out, pulled his head out of the wall, turned his head, and reprimanded the 3 handsome archmages from the Blue Pegasus. "Don't yell at our guests." "But, teacher, yeah," Ivan said with some indignation. "He hit you. He was the one who hit me first." Lotus put her hands in her pocket, looking very arrogant. "It's fine if he was hit by a woman, but the other party is a man." "Bossy, yeah, we can't just let it go." Hearing this, the members of Fairy Tale really wanted to chime in on the conversation. Just let it go when he was hit by a woman? How could he be so immoral? On the contrary, E acted as if nothing had happened. He straightened his collar and said in a serious tone, "Don't say that. Maybe that's his way of greeting. We can't be so rude." Hearing this, Noah almost couldn't control his body and fell to the ground. It's fine if he looks so unique, but if even his personality and thoughts are so unique, it's no wonder he can create such a character. The world is really big, and there are all kinds of strange things. Just as this thought appeared in Noah's mind, E stared at Noah and spoke in a voice that didn't match his appearance at all. "Besides, if that Noah Dole really wanted to hit me, I wouldn't be able to stand up." "Noah Dole?" Xiang, Lien, and Ivan were stunned at the same time, and then they all looked at Noah in surprise. "He's at Noah Dole?" In this world, Noah was considered to be quite famous. There were 3 reasons. One of the reasons was because Noah was Makarov's grandson. As a senior among the 10 great Saint Magus masters, it was likely that no one would not recognize the fairy tale Makarov. As the grandson of Makarov, Noah was destined to be famous when he inherited the surname of Dole. The other reason was a piece of news that had recently spread throughout the entire continent. The guild leader of the Phantom Lord, who was once on equal footing with Fairy Tale and had the ability to compete with Fairy Tale for the position of the #1 guild in the kingdom of Fiore, was killed by Noah. Another one of the 10 Saint Magi, Joseph, had been killed by Noah. To be more precise, it was the news that the guild leader of the Phantom Lord, Joseph, was killed by a golden wolf under Noah's command. This news had long been known to everyone. At that time, Noah was even called by the council because of this matter. One could only imagine how big of a commotion this matter had become. As a result, Noah's reputation was even greater. Then, there was another reason. That famous cover girl, the fiancée of Mira Jenny Strauss? Mira looked at Noah with a scrutinizing gaze. I didn't expect it to be such a man. If it was said that Makarov, who was one of the 10 great Saint Magus masters, as long as he was a mage, he would definitely know about him. Myra's reputation was something that even ordinary civilians had to know about. There was no other reason. In this world, Mira had always been at the top of various magazine covers and rankings to evaluate women's charm. She had never fallen to second place. Therefore, in terms of popularity, Mira was definitely greater than any of the 10 great Saint Magus masters. She was simply like a national idol. Among the single and even married men, at least 80% of them were intoxicated by Myra's beauty. Even women had to fall in front of Myra's popularity. To put it bluntly, Mira was another meaning of Lien Asubble. When such a popular idol got married to Noah 1 or 2 months ago on the mainland, it was unknown how many people cried directly. As a result, even if Noah didn't want to be famous, it would be difficult, especially for pretentious handsome men like Mira, Lien, and Ivan, a beautiful girl that they couldn't help but praise. It was difficult for them not to know about the existence of Noah. Seeing that the 3 handsome mages of the Blue Pegasus were looking at him with scrutinizing and envious eyes, Noah's eyebrows slightly raised, and then he cast his gaze on Iya. You're called Iya, right? That's right. Iya stood on tiptoe, as if dancing, making a narcissistic posture. I exist for thousands of girls, Iya. Why don't I just call you Iya? Noah resisted the urge to turn around and leave as he asked, How's the gathering of the Alliance? When it came to business, Iya's face became serious. We are now on our way to the gathering point. Because we encountered an unknown magic airship on the way, we stopped. But we didn't expect it to be the airship of the fairy tale. Since you, as the host, haven't arrived yet, that means that the people from the other 2 guilds haven't arrived yet, right? Noah said, If possible, I hope we can gather as soon as possible to complete the mission. As soon as possible, Iya was stunned. Is there a need to be so anxious? This time, we don't only have a mission to suppress the Baram Alliance's Dark Guild. We also have another mission to complete. Noah shook his head. So, if possible, I hope we can start a bit earlier. Is that so? E rubbed his wide chin and nodded. Although I'm curious about the other mission, since you said so, then we'll hurry over as soon as possible. After saying that, ordered Mira, Lien, and Ivan. For now on, go full speed ahead. Yes. Mira, Lien, and Ivan stood at attention and rushed out of the room. Thus, the magic explosive airship named Christina immediately sped up and flew toward the gathering point of the Allied forces. Chapter 1044. To be honest, in terms of speed, Blue Pegasus's magic explosive airship was extremely slow compared to Noah's Vimanas. If one had to make an analogy, if one were to compare Noah's Vimanas to an airplane, then even if Blue Pegasus's magic explosive airship could fly, its speed would be about the same as a normal horse carriage. Therefore, if one's goal was to rush for time, then it would be better to take the Vimanas instead of the Blue Pegasus magic explosive airship. However, Noah's goal was not to rush for time, but to quickly gather the allied forces of the four major guilds so that they could take action against Oration Cease. Near the Sea of Trees where the sixth demon general, Oration Cease, was active, there was the villa of the Blue Pegasus president. That was the gathering point of the allied forces of the four major guilds. As the host, the Blue Pegasus obviously had to arrive at the rendezvous point in advance to make some preparations. Furthermore, this time, because Blue Pegasus was the one who discovered the six demon generals' activities in time, Blue Pegasus also had some information about the six demon generals' Oration Cease. Therefore, it was reasonable for the Blue Pegasus to arrive at the rendezvous point ahead of time. Because Noah's group had directly taken the Vimanas to travel, while the Blue Pegasus was still rushing to the rendezvous point, Noah's group had caught up with the Blue Pegasus from behind. In other words, unless the other two guilds were like Noah and had extraordinary means of transportation. Otherwise, it would be impossible for it to be faster than the Blue Pegasus. So, even if you're anxious now, if the people from the other two guilds haven't arrived yet, then the mission can't start. On Christina's deck, one knight, who was wearing a white suit, but could not hide his short and bloated figure, nor could it hide his extremely unique face, posed strangely in a self-proclaimed handsome manner and pointed in Alusha's direction. If Miss Alusha is really bored, why don't you admire the fragrance of the sky with me? I refuse. Alusha felt goosebumps all over her body. She trembled violently and shouted at one knight as if she could not bear it. Besides, there's no fragrance in the sky, and there's no way to admire the fragrance. You got it all wrong. Well, let's not care about those trivial details. One knight flipped his hair and twitched his huge nostrils in Alusha's direction. Why don't you let me admire your fragrance? As one knight said this, he sniffed in Alusha's direction with his huge nostrils, just like when he was talking to Noah. Alusha's body trembled, and she threw a punch without any hesitation. Don't come near me. The cannonball-like fist hit one knight's huge nostrils with a bang. Man, two streams of blood suddenly spurted out of one knight's nostrils, and his entire body flew out in a perfect parabola. Like a large piece of trash, he smashed onto the deck not far away. After moving a few times, he calmed down. Ha! Ha! Alusha panted heavily with a look of lingering fear. Seeing the scene with their own eyes, Gray and Lucy looked at each other and smiled at the same time. Sure enough, Gray's expression was stiff. Alusha is more terrifying. I feel the same. Lucy glanced at one knight lying on the deck, and her delicate body trembled violently. However, I can understand why Alusha is afraid of that person, Love. Even Habby became a little weak and said this. I heard that when the major guilds gathered in the past, Alusha went with the president and saw one knight there. One knight seems to have fallen in love with Alusha at first sight since then, and he has been pestering Alusha. In other words, Iya has taken a liking to Alusha. Gray looked at One Knight strangely, and there was a trace of pity in his eyes. He actually likes Alusha. He really doesn't want to live anymore. Ah! Lucy laughed dryly and didn't say anything. In fact, from appearance alone, Alusha was definitely the top of the top, a real beauty. Otherwise, Alusha wouldn't enjoy the title of Fairy Queen. However, Alusha's character was quite tough and extremely violent. If it was an ordinary person, she would be violent. But for someone as powerful as Alusha, once she was violent, the scene was simply too horrible to look at. It was also for this reason that so far, those who pursued Alusha have all hit a wall, and it was the kind that hit hard. Knowing the reason, coupled with his extreme fear of Alusha, it was no wonder that Gray would make such a statement. On the side, Noah, who heard the conversation between the group of people, could only secretly feel a burst of laughter in his heart. Indeed, whether it was One Knight's appearance, personality, or values, there was a taste that people didn't dare to compliment. However, Alusha also said that in terms of magic, One Knight was a great magic shooter. In this regard, Noah was still looking forward to it. Just as the group of people were making a ruckus, a voice interrupted everyone's playfulness. Master One Knight. Echo came out of the driver's cabin. When he was about to say something, he saw One Knight lying on the ground and exclaimed, "What's wrong with you?" As soon as Echo's voice sounded, One Knight, who was lying on the ground without moving, jumped up and made a post. "I'm fine. Look at you in a hurry. Is there something wrong?" "Yes." A voice rang out and stood at attention. Like a messenger, he spoke respectfully. "Just now, the guild sent a message saying that one of the other two guilds has arrived at the rendezvous point ahead of time." "What?" One Knight raised his eyebrows. "The other guilds have already arrived at the rendezvous point?" "Yes." Echo also felt a little embarrassed. Although I don't know what kind of method they used, they did arrive first. "That's really embarrassing." One Knight clenched his fist and looked indignant. "We were supposed to welcome the people from the other guilds, but they caught up with us first, and then they arrived at the rendezvous point ahead of us. This is really a big mistake." After saying that, One Knight put his index and middle finger together and pointed at Echo. "Which guild was the first to arrive?" Echo immediately answered. "The first to arrive was the people from Cat Shelter." This sentence made Noah, who was quietly listening at the side, raise his head. "Cat Shelter?" he asked in confusion. "How many people came? Who are they?" "That..." The voice suddenly became hesitant. It said that only one person came. Only one person? One Knight was stunned. Only one person? Alusha and the others were also stunned. Only Noah's heart skipped a beat. He asked without hesitation, "Who is that person?" "We haven't heard of her either." Echo hesitated for a moment and finally answered truthfully. "But it seems to be just a little girl." Noah's eyes suddenly flashed. Could it be Noah, who had an idea in his mind, couldn't sit still and stood up directly? "I'll go take a look first." Without giving Alusha and Gray time to react, Noah suddenly jumped down from the magic explosive airship. In the next second, accompanied by a burst of golden light, the golden arc suddenly shot out and flew to the other side of the sky. Chapter 1045. Xiao. The sharp sound of something breaking through the air was incessant, causing the originally peaceful sky to seem as though it had been disturbed, causing waves of turbulence in the air. The entire body of the ark was a resplendent gold and beautiful emerald green. It was like a flying bird, and like a golden meteor, it flashed across the sky and flew forward at an extremely fast speed. Noah, who was sitting on the throne of the Vimanas, looked at the scenery that was constantly moving backwards. He identified the map in his hand, and after confirming his current location, he raised his eyes and looked forward. Is it there? Following the flight of the Vimanas, a boundless sea of trees appeared before Noah's eyes, like a boundless sea of green. As the Vimanas soared through the horizon, neared the sea of trees, its speed gradually slowed down. Only when it reached the edge of the sea of trees did it come to a complete stop as it hovered in midair. The Villa of the Blue Pegasus is somewhere around here, right? Under Noah's control, The flying relic named Vimanas started to slowly rotate around the surroundings. It was just like a flying bird that was slowly circling the area. Not long after, Noah finally saw it. Not far from the ocean of trees, there was a villa located in the suburbs. Seeing the villa, Noah's eyes lit up. It's there! The moment he finished speaking, the Vimanas flying in the sky immediately turned and flew towards the direction of the villa. Only when it was above the villa did it slow down and descend. Noah, who had jumped down from the Vimanas, landed steadily on the ground and looked forward. It was a villa that was no different from an ordinary mansion. It did not have overly luxurious decorations, nor did it have an overly exaggerated appearance. It was just an ordinary villa. However, at this moment, the villa's door was wide open. From where Noah was looking, he could still see it clearly. In the villa, in the hall on the first floor, there was a figure standing there. Noah's heart began to beat wildly. Although he could not see the full appearance of the figure, Noah's outstanding sensing ability allowed him to feel a familiar aura that he had not felt for a long time. Xiang had mentioned before that there was only one sorcerer from the cat shelter. Moreover, it was a little girl. From then on, Noah had been guessing whether the other party was the person he knew. Now, his guess had finally been confirmed. Lifting his feet, Noah could not help but walk towards the villa. When Noah arrived at the villa's door, in the villa, a tender and cute voice echoed. "Why is no one here yet?" Her voice faintly carried a feeling of weeping, causing one's mind to immediately conjure up the scene of a cute little girl using a pitiful expression to say these words. After his voice faded away, another voice filled with helplessness rang out. "You have asked this question several times, so didn't I tell you not to come so quickly?" But the tender and cute voice began to have a little timidity. "I want to see Big Brother Noah as soon as possible." Hearing this sentence, the other voice was a little angry. "This sentence again. You always talk about Big Brother Noah and Big Brother Noah. Didn't I tell you before that although there are people from Fairy Tale participating in the Alliance, it might not be your Big Brother Noah?" As if there was no way to refute this sentence, the owner of the tender and cute voice was speechless. Hearing this, Noah's fluctuating heart calmed down, and a smile hung on his face. Not knowing if it was because they sensed Noah's presence, the person in the villa turned around and looked in the direction of the door. Only then did Noah see the full appearance of the figure he saw outside. It was a young girl. She was only around 13 or 14 years old and was about 150 centimeters tall. She was a petite girl who wasn't even 150 centimeters tall. Of course, although the young girl was petite, her appearance was very cute. Not only was she wearing a blue and yellow dress, but she also had a delicate and pitiful atmosphere, which would definitely make people subconsciously have feelings of love for her. The most eye-catching thing was the long dark blue hair of the young girl. Like a waterfall, it was vertical, reaching the waist, very elegant dark blue hair. Seeing that dark blue waist-length hair, Noah seemed to be able to see the little girl with dark blue shoulder-length hair, and his eyes fluctuated. When Noah was observing the other party, the petite young girl also cast her gaze on Noah. Then a doll-like cute and delicate face completely froze. Noah could see it. In the young girl's eyes, there were emotions of surprise, confusion, doubt, and disbelief. In addition to these emotions, there was another emotion that occupied almost all of that pair of beautiful big eyes. That is excitement. Looking at Noah, who appeared in the direction of the door, the young girl clenched one hand in front of her body, as if she saw a close family member, but she was a little uncertain, timid, and pitiful that she couldn't go forward to greet him. However, not knowing if it was because the excitement occupied most of the young girl's heart, in the end, the young girl still mustered up the courage. That? Excuse me, you are... Hearing this, Noah smiled, very helpless. Don't recognize me? Saying such a sentence, Noah half squatted down and cast a gentle gaze on the young girl. But I knew you were coming before I saw you, Wendy. It has been 7 years since Noah and Wendy separated. In 7 years, Noah has grown from a child to an adult. His temperament and appearance are very different from back then. On the contrary, Wendy can vaguely see a trace of the past. But you have also grown up. Hearing Noah's voice, the young girl Wendy's eyes finally filled with excitement. Big brother Noah, like a fledgling returning to its nest, Wendy suddenly pounced in Noah's direction, buried her head, and dove into Noah's embrace. Noah almost immediately opened his arms, tightly hugging the pouncing Wendy, and immediately patted Wendy's head. You have really grown up, Wendy. Big brother Noah. Big brother Noah. Wendy buried her head in Noah's embrace. With a trace of a crying voice, sounded, I finally see you again. I have missed you so much. Up until 7 years ago, Wendy was still isolated from the rest of the world, never having interacted with a single person. In her life, she did not even have a mother, and was an orphan who was raised by a dragon named Grandini. 7 years ago, the dragon Grandini disappeared, and the young girl Wendy became completely alone, wandering helplessly in the forest. Even now, Noah has not forgotten. Back then, he had only made the slightest noise, and this young girl was immediately frightened and hid. Before that, the young girl had also caused a ghost weeping incident, which almost caused a huge riot. Apart from Grandini, the first person Wendy saw in her life was Noah. Wendy still remembered it to this day. Back then, when Grandini disappeared, Noah found her hiding in the bushes, trembling, and reached out to her. If there was one person in this world who was the most important to Wendy, it would definitely be the mother who raised her, Grandini. However, if there was one person who was the most important to Wendy in this world, it would be Noah and no one else. Feeling the longing in Wendy's heart, Noah was touched. Undoubtedly, they had been separated for as long as 7 years, but Wendy did not show the slightest trace of resentment, which dissipated the trace of unfamiliarity in Noah's heart. Chapter 1046. Back then, Noah had met Wendy by chance, and through various coincidences, they had been together for a short period of time. That period of time was only a few short days. Although those few days were unforgettable for Noah, Noah had only treated Wendy as a cute little sister and had never thought of interfering with her life. Otherwise, after knowing that Wendy had been placed in the cat shelter by Mishgang, Noah would have gone to find her long ago. The reason why he hadn't done so was because he thought that the short few days of interaction back then was only a small interlude to Wendy. After 7 years of tempering, it should have long been forgotten. Who would have thought that when they met again, Wendy's attitude hadn't changed in the slightest compared to 7 years ago? Instead, because of the long time she had missed Noah, she longed to meet him even more. Noah really didn't think that he was still so important to Wendy. Therefore, when he felt Wendy hugging him tightly and crying tears of joy, Noah was really touched. Although this child was raised by a dragon, she was kinder and more humane than anyone else. Okay, don't cry. Holding Wendy in his arms, Noah lifted her face and gazed at her tear-stained face. Then, he gently wiped away the tears on Wendy's face. You've already grown up. Why are you still crying so much like before? Because, Wendy sobbed as she allowed Noah to wipe away her tears. I really miss Big Brother Noah. Really? Noah sighed and patted Wendy's head. I miss Wendy too. This was the truth. Although he didn't want to interfere with Wendy's life, Noah didn't forget that short few days 7 years ago. Otherwise, Noah wouldn't have volunteered to participate in the Alliance just because there was a cat shelter in the Alliance this time. It's just that compared to 7 years ago, you've changed a lot. Noah suddenly smiled. You're already able to participate in such a dangerous mission alone. However, as soon as this sentence fell, a voice answered Noah's words. I'm not alone. This voice woke Noah up. Indeed, before entering the villa, Wendy seemed to be talking to someone. It was obviously Wendy's companion. However, undoubtedly, Blue Pegasus had said that this time there was only one magic shooter who came to participate in the Alliance's cat shelter. Could it be that person wasn't Wendy? Thinking this way, Noah also turned his gaze towards the source of the voice. However, the scene that entered his sight made Noah completely stunned on the spot. He saw that not far in front of Wendy, there was a figure that was only about 20 or 30 centimeters tall. It was a cat. The cat had white fur all over its body, but a pair of pink ears. It was wearing a short red dress and a bow on its tail. It was obviously a female cat. At this time, the cat was standing like a human, with its arms crossed, and looked at Noah with a very human-like gaze. "You're the brother Noah that Wendy always mentions every 2 to 3 days, the one that has been on her mind for so many years?" Hearing this sentence, Noah's first reaction was not the other's gaze and suspicious tone, but a more realistic question. The cat spoke. Noah had been to many worlds and had seen a lot of strange things. In particular, during the 3 months of traveling in the world of the Godslayer, Noah had seen many mythological beasts that were inextricably linked to the god and could speak to him. Noah has seen dragons that can speak. Noah has seen snakes that can speak. Noah has seen birds that can speak. Of course, Noah had seen cats that could talk before. However, Noah has only seen cats that can speak in this world. That is Hubby. Noah thought that in this world, Hubby should be the only cat that can speak. Who would have thought that there would be another one here? On the contrary, the white cat showed a trace of disapproval towards Noah's surprise. What? Is it strange that cats can speak? Normally speaking, in fact, it is really strange that cats can speak. If Lucy was here, she would probably complain like this again. "Sia Lulu," when he puffed up her cheeks. "Don't talk to Big Brother Noah like that. For you, he is your most important Big Brother Noah, but for me, he is just a human male." The white cat named Sia Lulu snorted softly and turned away. "Really, from the beginning, as long as I said something bad about this person, you immediately sang the opposite of me. Undoubtedly, you listen to me in other things, and you don't have the courage to quarrel with me. But Big Brother Noah is Big Brother Noah." When he first said this to Sia Lulu with some embarrassment, then looked timidly at Noah and said so. "Big Brother Noah, don't be angry with Sia Lulu. If it weren't for Sia Lulu, I wouldn't have been able to see Big Brother Noah so quickly. Although before that, I didn't know whether Big Brother Noah would come or not. That's why I said, you are a really troublesome child." Sia Lulu nagged. "You didn't even know if this human male would come, and you volunteered to participate in this crusade mission, and kept dragging me to bring you here. There should be a limit, right? So, sorry." Winnie seemed to feel that she was a little unreasonable in this matter, so she apologized in low spirits. Noah finally understood why Winnie was able to reach the rendezvous point so quickly. Was it because she heard that Fairy Tale would be participating in this alliance? Winnie was probably holding on to a trace of hope that she could see Noah here, so she rushed here in a hurry. Thinking of this, Noah was really ashamed. Although Noah missed Wendy very much, it could not compare to Wendy's longing for him. Obviously, 7 years ago, when Grandine left Wendy, Noah found Wendy at that time, so that Wendy would not be alone and helpless in the forest. This left a deep impression on Wendy's young heart. Then, Noah patted Wendy's little head and looked at Sia Lulu. "You're Wendy's friend, right? Thank you for tolerating Wendy's stubbornness." Hearing Noah's frank thanks, Sia Lulu was not used to it, so she deliberately snorted and said this. I was just worried that Wendy might be deceived by someone. It has nothing to do with you." Seeing Sia Lulu's reaction, Noah could not help but laugh. This white cat was completely different from Hubby. If Hubby was a nonsensical street performer, then Sia Lulu would be its Sundara, right? In other words, this white cat was not good at dealing with people's good intentions, but was rather merciless towards people's bad intentions. "Anyway, thank you very much," Noah said to Sia Lulu, then turned back to Wendy in his arms and stroked Wendy's head. "Tell me how you have been for the past 7 years. And Wendy nodded heavily, and an extremely cute smile appeared on her face. Noah could not help but hug the little body in his arms a little tighter. It was precisely because of this that Noah did not notice it. While he was very happy with Wendy, a silver dagger on his waist exuded a faint light. About 2 hours later, Alusha and the others finally arrived at the villa. As soon as they arrived at the villa, Nazi seemed to have been liberated and breathed a sigh of relief. The others were frightened by the scene in front of them. Your acquaintance? Alusha, Lucy, and Gray looked at Wendy, who was standing next to Noah, and looked at each other. Kat, Iya, Xiang, Lien, and Ifan pointed at Xia Lulu and made a fuss about nothing. As for hubby, the moment he saw Xia Lulu, he was completely stunned. Chapter 10:47. That. When he seemed to be a little nervous as Alusha, Lucy, and Gray stared at her with their eyes wide open. She spoke in a very restrained and timid voice. I'm Wendy Mabel from Cat Shelter. Nice to meet you. Hearing this, Alusha, Lucy, and Gray looked at each other and saw the confusion in each other's eyes. What is Cat Shelter thinking? Gray asked without any scruples. This is a crusade mission, and it's an important crusade mission against one of the dark guilds of the Baram Alliance that controls the entire continent. Why would they let a child come? Not to mention Gray. Even Alusha and Lucy had the same idea. It wasn't that Alusha and the others were looking down on children. After all, Noah and Alusha were already magic shooters who could take charge of an area when they were Wendy's age. Therefore, everyone didn't judge Wendy's strength by her appearance. What made everyone so confused was that this mission was not suitable for children at all. No matter what, this was a crusade mission. In other words, when it was necessary, no matter who it was, they had to kill their enemies and kill them directly. And how could a child participate in such a bloody mission? Of course, Winnie didn't know about this idea. When she saw everyone's confused look, she didn't seem to know what to do. On the contrary, Naz, who got off the vehicle and was finally revived, twitched the bridge of his nose and looked at Wendy with a puzzled gaze. This smell, it feels a bit familiar. Noah, who clearly saw Naz's performance, smiled slightly. I say, don't underestimate Wendy. Noah stretched out his hand and patted Wendy's little head, who was standing beside him and snuggling up to him, and said so. Although there may be no guarantee in terms of combat power, Wendy has magic that can heal any injury. As a support, that's not ordinary. Heal. Alusha and Gray both looked at Wendy in surprise. Wait. Lucy seemed to have thought of something and said in surprise. Healing magic? Isn't that a magic that has been lost? Yes. In today's magic world, there were many magic that could have similar healing effects, but most of them were like detoxification, pain relief, or removal of curses. The kind of magic that could really heal injuries had been lost a long time ago. So far, in this world, even Noah had only seen this kind of healing magic from Makarov's best friend, the old lady named Polyasia. Other than that, in this world, Noah had never heard of anyone who had magic that could directly heal injuries. However, Wendy possessed this kind of magic. Noah had seen it with his own eyes. Because, back then, Wendy used this magic to heal Mishgang, whom they had encountered by chance in the forest. The magic that Wendy has mastered is the magic that has been lost, the lost magic. Noah glanced in Nazi's direction. Moreover, Wendy's magic is the same type as yours, Nazi. The same type. Nazi was stunned. The same type? Lucy was also stunned. Only Alusha and Gray thought of something and were stunned. Could it be? It's similar to what you think. Noah suddenly smiled. Wendy is the master of the Dragon Slayer magic in the sky, a real Dragon Slayer magic shooter. Alusha, Lucy, and Gray were shocked and stared at Wendy in amazement. Dragon Slayer magic shooter? Nazi's eyes widened as he stared at Wendy foolishly. He didn't react for a long time. Dragon Slayer magic shooter. As the name implied, it was a magic shooter who had mastered the magic that could destroy dragons and could even transform their physique into that of dragons. A magic shooter who could even kill a dragon? Thinking about it, it was impossible for her to be an ordinary magic shooter. And this little girl who was more delicate than anyone, and even more timid than anyone else, was a Dragon Slayer magic shooter? That huge contrast caused everyone present to be stunned and unable to react. Under the stunned gazes of everyone, Wendy felt a little nervous and shy. Her small body involuntarily hid behind Noah, tightly grabbing onto Noah's clothes. Okay, don't scare Wendy. Noah didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he protected Wendy, who was hiding behind him. Although she's a Dragon Slayer magic shooter, the Dragon Slayer magic in the sky is not only a killing magic, but also has healing and auxiliary abilities. Wendy's combat power is probably not very good, but her attainments in various auxiliary magic are not shallow. She knew how to heal wounds 7 years ago, so don't look at her with strange eyes. I see. Alusha smiled bitterly, and then a gentle expression appeared on her face as she spoke to Wendy. Sorry, we didn't mean to scare you. We were just a little surprised. Please give us more advice in the next period of time. Yes, yes. Wendy froze for a moment, and then nodded repeatedly after coming to her senses. That child is also a Dragon Slayer magic shooter? Naz muttered while looking straight at Wendy. I wonder if she was also raised by a dragon? Harpy? However, Naz, who was looking in Harpy's direction, was stunned again. It was because Harpy, who was at Naz's feet, didn't hear Naz's words at all and was staring blankly ahead. There, Xia Lulu was hugging her arms and seemed to have felt Harpy's gaze. After glancing at Harpy, she snorted coldly and turned her head away. At this moment, Harpy trembled all over as if he had been electrocuted, and love appeared in his eyes. So cute. It seemed that this tomcat was beginning to think of love. In any case, in the alliance army formed by the 4 major guilds, the magic shooters of Fairy Tail, Blue Pegasus, and Cat Shelter have all gathered. In the center of the hall, a pompous figure that looked like the Thinker but seemed to have a spotlight all over his body opened his mouth as if to emphasize his presence. Next, we just need to wait for the last Lamia scale to gather. Then, we can set off and go on a crusade against the 6 demon generals, Oration Cease. Everyone nodded in unison. However, according to the plan, only Blue Pegasus should have arrived at the gathering point during this period of time. Echo stepped forward, came to Unite's side, and looked around at everyone. But due to various reasons, the people from Fairy Tail and Cat Shelter also arrived first. If we calculate according to the planned time, the Lamia scale shouldn't arrive so soon. Ivan also spoke up. So, before everyone is here, please take a rest. There are already many empty rooms in this villa. Lotus's hands were still in her pockets, as she said slowly. You can choose the room you like and take a rest. Noah and the others immediately exchanged glances and then immediately nodded. At this time, Wendy held Noah's hand, and her face was full of hope. Seeing this, Noah laughed and patted Wendy's head. Wendy, come with me. Thus, Wendy smiled happily. Wow. On the open-air balcony of her room, Wendy looked at the endless sea of trees in the sky and was somewhat moved and exclaimed, It's so beautiful. The president of Pegasus really knows how to enjoy life. Noah was also here, looking at the scenery outside, and shrugged. However, now it's our turn. But Wendy snuggled up to Noah without any scruples and looked very happy. As long as I can be with Big Brother Noah, I'm already very happy. Is that so? Noah could not help but laugh, and then he remembered something. All right, Wendy, let me introduce you to someone. Chapter 1048. Introduce someone to me? Hearing Noah's words, Wendy was puzzled. Did Noah already introduce his companions to Wendy? Now, who else could introduce them? Under Wendy's puzzled gaze, Noah pulled out the small silver sword from his waist. Aster, come out. While saying this, Noah also activated the divine aura source in his body. Through his arm, he channeled it into the small silver sword in his hand. In the past, whenever Aster was carried around by Noah in this form, Noah would first go through this step when calling out to Aster, because sometimes Aster could be in a deep sleep and could not be woken up by just calling out to him. Therefore, he had to use the method of channeling divine aura to wake Aster up. Under the channeling of divine aura, the small silver sword in Noah's hand emitted a gentle glow. This was the sign that Aster was waking up. Noah, who had a spirit contract with Aster, could clearly feel the awakening of the spirit contract. However, when Aster woke up, the small silver sword that was emitting a gentle glow suddenly dimmed. Noah was stunned. What's going on? Full of doubts, Noah continued channeling divine aura into the small silver sword. However, this time, under the infusion of Noah's divine power, not only did the elven device in the form of a small silver sword not emit any light, but also gradually retracted the brilliance on it. After a while, it returned to its tranquil state. Noah finally cried out in surprise. What's going on, big brother Noah? Wendy tilted her head and looked at Noah in confusion. What's going on with you? Noah did not say anything. Instead, he frowned and stared at the small silver sword in his hand. Through the contract with Aster, Noah could clearly feel the familiar fluctuation of life and spirit aura from the small silver sword in his hand. This told Noah that his contracted spirit had indeed awakened. However, for some reason, Aster did not transform into his human form. It was not that he could not. It was that he did not want to. The divine aura that Noah channeled into the fairy device in his hand was like hitting cotton and returned without any resistance. In other words, Aster did not accept Noah's divine aura at all. In other words, Aster was rejecting Noah. He was refusing to show himself at this moment. Aster? Noah called out to the silver dagger in his hand in confusion. What's wrong with you? Naturally, this sentence did not receive any response. The small silver sword lying in Noah's hand was like a dead object. There was not the slightest movement. If it was not because Noah could still know Aster's current situation through the fairy device, Noah would definitely think that something had happened to Aster. Noah hesitated for a moment and said with uncertainty as he recalled the scenes of his interactions with Aster and Aster's personality. Adding on the trace of good fortune that came from the elven contract, Noah hesitated for a moment and said with uncertainty, Aster, you aren't angry right now, are you? Of course, Noah's words still did not receive any response from Aster. However, this confirmed Noah's suspicions. For some reason, Aster's mood suddenly became bad, and he refused to show himself in front of Noah. This was not a rare occurrence. After all, as mentioned before, the fairies had their own will. Even if they had a contract with the fairy device, if they were in a bad mood, they might not lend their power to the fairy device. In serious cases, it might even cause the contract to break. It was also because of this that the fairy device had to master the sword dance. It was a ceremony that could please the fairies and improve their mood. It was also a ceremony that could draw out all of the fairies' power. Usually, at this time, the fairy device would choose to perform a sword dance ceremony to restore the fairies' mood. Of course, one could also use normal methods, such as offering the fairies their favorite food or playing with the fairies to restore the fairies' mood. Simply put, it was like raising a pet and coaxing it. Aster, Noah was somewhat helpless. At least tell me the reason for your anger. Unfortunately, the small silver sword was still lying quietly in Noah's hand, and there was no movement at all. Noah gidged when he was getting more and more confused. Forget it. Noah scratched his cheek and put the small silver sword back on his waist and smiled at Wendy. Well, this friend of mine doesn't seem to be in a good mood. She won't even talk to me. Let's wait for her anger to subside before I introduce you to each other. Got it. Wendy nodded obediently. That appearance reminded Noah of the short time he spent with Wendy 7 years ago. Although they hadn't seen each other for 7 years, Wendy was still sticking to Noah as usual. She listened to Noah's words like an extremely obedient and cute little sister who loved to act coquettishly, making people love her dearly. Noah was the same. He caressed Wendy's little head lovingly and couldn't help but say that. I really want Mila and Lisanna to meet Wendy. Mila and Lisanna? Wendy was startled. Then, as if she had thought of something extremely important, a trace of nervousness appeared on her young and delicate face. That, Brother Noah, are the two people I just mentioned your fiancés? Oh, Noah raised an eyebrow. You already know? Yes. Wendy nodded heavily. That's because I've been asking everyone in the guild to help me gather information on Brother Noah. That way, there was no way Winnie wouldn't know of Mila and Lysana's existence. After all, with Mila's reputation, news of her engagement with Noah had already spread throughout the continent. Naturally, news of Lysana had also spread like wildfire. Since Wendy had been gathering information on Noah, it was impossible for her not to know of this important matter. That, when he seemed to be interrogating him, she leaned her body in Noah's direction and stared at him intently. Will Mila and Miss Lysana become brothers' brides in the future? That's right. Noah's reply was a little strange. Since they're engaged, they'll naturally have to get married in the future. Is that so? When he suddenly hung her head dejectedly. Even the corners of her eyes were filled with tears. As expected, they'll still get married? Seeing Wendy's dejected look, Noah was puzzled. What's wrong? Is there something wrong? No, nothing. Wendy shook her head as if she had given up on something. She lowered her head and looked at her fingers as she spoke in a mosquito-like voice. I was just thinking that since Brother Noah already has 2 brides, will there be a third in the future? Noah was at a loss for words. His expression became awkward. I'm sorry. I can't say for sure that there won't be. Noah's feelings for Mila and Lysana were the most sincere. There wasn't the slightest bit of pretense. However, it had to be said that Noah didn't dare to say that he would only marry Mila and Lysana in the future. Other things aside, in the other world, Noah still had a 3-year promise with the Elysian Emperor. If the Elysian Emperor still didn't forget his original intentions and fell in love with Noah after 3 years, then Noah would definitely reciprocate the Elysian Emperor's feelings. This was something that had already been decided back then. Hence, Noah really couldn't say for sure. In the end, this answer made Wendy suddenly look up with a face full of surprise. So there really could be a third one. Noah was shocked by Wendy's sudden excitement. He couldn't help but take a step back. What's wrong? Is there a problem? Could it be that when he felt that he was too much of a playboy and was starting to feel disappointed in his image as a perfect brother? While Noah was thinking about this, Wendy, who seemed to be very motivated, said seriously, "Don't worry, it's time for you to leave. I will work hard." Work hard? Noah blinked. Work hard? Work hard for what? Time passed by amidst Noah's bewilderment and Wendy's enthusiasm, until the news of the arrival of the last guild announced the end of everyone's break. Chapter 1049. When Noah and Wendy came out of the villa's room together and came to the hall on the first floor, the scene that appeared in front of them directly surprised Noah and Wendy. This was because the entire hall on the first floor of the villa was filled with an extremely dangerous atmosphere, causing the tension of swords drawn and bows to firmly affect the hearts of everyone present. Ugh, shrouded by the dangerous atmosphere, Wendy couldn't help but tremble and hid behind Noah. Noah raised his eyes and looked at the situation in the hall. He saw, in the center of the hall, for people were looking at each other, and with a heavy expression, their eyes were full of bitterness and hatred. Among the 4 people, 2 were very familiar to Noah. Impressively, it was Gray and Lucy. The one who was looking at Gray was a cold young man with short blue and white hair like ice. From the cold young man, Noah felt a magic that was very similar to Gray's magic, which made Noah more or less pay attention to it. And the one who was staring at Lucy was a young girl. A young girl with a pink waist and slightly curly red hair, dressed a bit flirtatiously. At this time, this young girl was looking at Lucy with a provocative look, which made Lucy so angry that she almost smoked. Without thinking, it was obvious that Gray and Lucy's relationship with the 2 people opposite them was very bad. But who were those 2 people? Just as Noah secretly raised his eyebrows, an angry voice followed. "The human male over there." The one who said the sentence was Xia Lulu. With a pair of wings on her back, she flew in the air and landed in front of Noah, glaring at Noah. "Xia Lulu, why did you take Wendy away without permission?" "Xia Lulu." Wendy peeked out from behind Noah and said with fear, I wasn't taken away by Brother Noah, but by Brother Noah. How can you leave alone with another man without permission? Xiao Lulu was anxious. Do you know that I was very worried about you? So, sorry. Wendy's face was sad, but she still emphasized. But, Brother Noah is not another man. This sentence made Xiao Lulu both angry and helpless. Because only Xiao Lulu knew that no matter what, whether it was right or wrong, as long as someone reprimanded Wendy, the timid Wendy would honestly apologize. Only when it came to Noah's matters, this little girl would actually show a rare tough side, and in turn, whether it was right or wrong, she would defend Noah. Therefore, Xiao Lulu had long known that arguing with Wendy about Noah would not lead to a conclusion. It might even lead to a big fight between the two of them. Helpless, Xiao Lulu could only sulk secretly, fly to Wendy's side, and stare at Noah. In this regard, Noah could only spread his hands and point in the direction of Gray and Lucy. What's going on? Who knows? Xiao Lulu's tone was unfriendly, but she still did not ignore Noah and chose to answer. Since the two magic shooters from the Lamia scale came in, they suddenly confronted each other. Sure enough, they are the magic shooters from the Lamia scale. Noah turned his gaze to the man and woman who were in a cold war with Gray and Lucy. But why would Gray and Lucy fight with them? Love, I know. Hobby came out of nowhere, and while secretly glancing at Xiao Lulu, he leaned in Xiao Lulu's direction with an infatuated expression. Gray and Lucy fought with those two people. Fought. Noah frowned. Don't come close to me, Tomcat. Xiao Lulu also frowned. I'm not asking you, but he's asking you. Which male do you want to lean on? I'm here to treat you to fish. Hobby took out a fish from the bag behind him and handed it to Xiao Lulu in a flattering manner. Noah doesn't eat fish. Seeing that Hobby went to pester Xiao Lulu, Noah could only helplessly look to the other side and walk there. Elisha, who was staring at Gray, Lucy, and others, turned her head and looked at Noah. Noah, you came down? I just came down. Noah pointed in the direction of Gray, Lucy, and others. What's going on? Those two people. Elisha looked again at the man and woman confronting Gray and Lucy and said, those two people are called Leo and Shirley. In a previous mission, they fought with Gray and Lucy, but we don't know where they went. Now, it seems that those two people have joined the Lamia scale. Have they fought before? Noah looked thoughtfully at the young man named Leo, who was confronting Gray and had a very similar magical aura to Gray and a cold face. Is it really just a simple relationship of having fought before? Can you tell? Elisha sighed. That guy named Leo's identity is a bit special. Special? Noah asked. What's special about him? He and Gray are fellow apprentices. Elisha said in a deep voice. He used to learn magic under the guidance of the same teacher, and like Gray, he used the ice shaping magic. He's senior apprentice of Gray. Senior apprentice? Noah's brows furrowed tighter and tighter. Gray's senior apprentice? That guy named Leo is Gray's senior apprentice? Since they are fellow apprentices, then why does it seem that it's not strange for Gray and Leo to fight at any time? It seems that the relationship between Gray and Leo is even more incompatible than the relationship between Naz and Gray. Of course, Noah was not most concerned about Leo and Shirley, who were confronting Gray and Lucy, but the other person standing in front of the door. It was a tall and burly bald man, dressed in a rather unusual way, with the demeanor of a foreign minority. That person had been standing there since the beginning. When Noah came down from upstairs, the other party cast a pair of sharp eyes straight at him, staring at Noah. From the bald man, Noah felt an unusual aura and magic power. Although the aura and magic power were not comparable to the level of the veteran 10 great saint magicians like Makarov and Kildas, it was not weaker than Lax's and Jalal, who had fought with Noah before. Noah knew this person. To be more precise, it should be said that he had seen the other party's records and photos and books. The S-rank archmage of the Lamia scale. He has the title of Rock Iron, and is also one of the top 10 holy archmages. His name is Jurarikis. Noah looked directly at the bald man named Jura. I didn't expect that even he would come. While Noah was sizing up Terah, Terah was also sizing up Noah. Is it the grandson of His Excellency Makarov, the man who killed the president of the Phantom Lord, one of the 10 great saint magicians like me? Terah stared at Noah, his eyes gradually glowing. He's really young. He's as young as Jalal, the one who became one of the 10 great saint magi at a young age, but betrayed the council and became a traitor of the Tower of Paradise. Noah and Terah looked at each other from a distance. At a certain moment, a wave of demonic energy began to slowly burn on their bodies, rising into the air. The sudden appearance of the magic power shocked everyone present. They quickly turned their heads and looked in the direction of Noah and Terah. Noah, Alusha, Naz, Gray, and Lucy all looked at Noah in surprise. Mr. Terah, Leo, and Shirley also looked at Terah in shock. Brother Noah? Even when he couldn't help but leave Noah's side, her pretty face suddenly changed. As for hubby and Xia Lulu, cold sweat trickled down their faces and dripped onto the ground. However, Noah and Terah didn't care about the shock of the crowd. It was as if at this moment, they only had eyes for each other. Their clothes fluttered crazily without any wind. At the same time, an even more astonishing burst of berserk magic power erupted from Noah and Turtledove's bodies with the two of them as the center, causing the air to become chaotic. Chapter 10:50. The extremely violent magic aura set off a wave of air, like a gust of wind, whistling and sweeping through the villa's hall. Wong, under the rolling of the storm-like magic power, the entire space of the Blue Pegasus Villa seemed to tremble and issued a buzzing sound. Facing each other from a distance, Noah and Jura were like the center of a typhoon made of magic. Violent magic aura continuously rose around their bodies, making the magic aura waves collide with each other, crashing back and forth in the space, shaking incessantly. Ugh, Xiang, Lotus, and Ivan from the Blue Pegasus were already intimidated by the amazing magic aura. Their bodies felt as if they were being squeezed by a heavy mountain, and they knelt on one knee on the ground, their faces full of cold sweat. Liar, Lucy, who belonged to the fairy tale, and Shirley, who belonged to the Lamia scale, also couldn't help but lie on the ground, their beautiful faces changing dramatically. Brother Noah? Even Wendy, who came from the cat shelter, was hugging hubby and Xia Lulu tightly. Her slender legs were trembling, and she looked shocked. Naz, Gray, Leo, and One Night could still stand upright, but they also felt as if they were firmly nailed to the ground, unable to move, and their faces were full of shock. Only Aluso was not as shocked as the others on the spot, but there was a dignified look on her pretty face. He actually managed to intimidate so many high mages with just the release of mana. Whether it was Noah or Jura, they had not used any magic. They simply stood there, releasing the magic aura from their bodies. However, just by releasing demonic energy, the overly shocking demonic energy had already caused such an effect. This caused a group of people to be extremely shocked. This was the ability of the top 10 great saint magic shooters on this continent. This was because the competition between the top 10 great saint magic shooters was so astonishing. There were even rumors that once 2 of the top 10 great saint magic shooters fought, the earth would burst open, the sky would change color, and it would be called the end of the world. Of course, such rumors could only be said to be exaggerated. However, from this exaggerated rumor, it could be seen how powerful the top 10 great saint magic shooters were in the eyes of others. It was also because of this that in the past, in the council, the members of the council had forbidden private fights between the top 10 great saint magic shooters. Now that the council had disintegrated, such a rule was naturally gone. But the top 10 great saint magic shooters were just that, and no one would suddenly fight because of a rule. Therefore, this was a rare competition between the top 10 great saint magic shooters in front of Alusha and the others. Unfortunately, that was only what Alusha and Jura. At the very least, Jura knew what kind of monster he was up against. one of the top 10 great Saint Magic shooters? Jura did not know if Noah was really as powerful as one of the top 10 great Saint Magic shooters. However, the level of magic released by Noah at this moment was definitely not something that an ordinary top 10 great Saint Magic shooters could have. If Alusha and the others were to observe carefully, they would definitely be able to discover it. A thin layer of sweat began to slowly trickle down from the top of Du-La's head. That was a sign that Jura was exhausted. If one were to release their magic directly, the magic that was released would not return and would be directly consumed. Even if Jura was one of the top 10 great Saint Magic shooters, her magic was limited and she would naturally be exhausted. On the other hand, not only was Noah calm and composed, but the magic that was continuously rising from his body did not show any signs of exhaustion. Instead, it continued to rise as if it was not enough. Over time, the atmosphere around Noah's body, which was completely disrupted by the rising magic waves, even began to let out a mournful cry. The sharp sound of the wind was like a strange whirlwind that kept fluctuating. Jura had to admit that Noah had not used all of his magic yet. However, Jula herself was a little exhausted. If this continued, not only would he be wasting his precious mana, but he might also hurt his body and affect his fighting strength due to excessive and useless mana release. That was definitely an irrational behavior. Thus, Taras slowly retracted her magic power. Feeling that Jura was withdrawing her magic bit by bit, Noah narrowed his eyes and the corners of his mouth rose. He also withdrew his magic. For Noah, who had an endless supply of magic as his backing, this level of magic consumption was simply the same as a drop of water evaporating from the sea. However, that was only because Noah had the special energy bottomless hole of the mana source. It didn't take long before Noah and Turtle Dove's berserk magic power retracted back into their bodies, returning the scene to its original tranquility. I've long heard that Sir Noah has the ability to kill one of the top 10 great Saint Magic shooters. Seeing it today, you really live up to your reputation. A trace of gentleness appeared on Jura's serious face. I was displaying my slight skill in front of an expert. Please don't take offense. You're too polite. Noah shook his head. Mr. Jura's strength has also opened my eyes as a junior. The title of one of the top 10 great Saint Magic shooters is truly well-deserved. After the most direct competition of magic, Noah had more or less understood Jura's strength. Not as good as Makarov, not as good as Kildas, but compared to Jalal and Lax's, it should be about the same. Compared to Alusha, it was more than enough. Although it couldn't be compared to the top 10 great Saint Magic shooters, as a newly promoted great Saint Magic shooter, Jura was indeed worthy of the title of one of the top 10 great Saint Magic shooters in the continent. In the world of the Shaped Moon, Noah could be considered to have seen many heroes from myths and legends. For example, Artoria, who was once the Night King. For example, the great hero of Greek mythology, Hercules. For example, the famous snake-haired witch Medusa. For example, the fierce dog of Kettle's mythology, Cuchulainn. In the ceremony called the Holy Grail War, these heroes only appeared in the form of servants. As for how strong their heroic spirits were, Noah didn't know. However, Artoria, who appeared as a servant and obtained the position of Saber, which had the highest requirement for heroic spirits, should be about the same as Alusha in terms of strength. In other words, Jura was at least stronger than Saber. This kind of strength, even in the eyes of Noah, who had the current strength, he couldn't find any fault with it. Therefore, what Noah said was indeed true. There are strong and weak great Saint Magic shooters. For example, His Excellency Makarov's ranking among the top 10 great Saint Magic shooters is very high. His strength is naturally amazing, but I'm only at the bottom of the top 10 great Saint Magic shooters. Compared to His Excellency Noah, who was able to kill President Joseph, who is on par with His Excellency Makarov, I'm still far behind. Like a monk, Jura raised one of his palms and slightly bowed in salute. This time, with His Excellency here, the crusade mission is really foolproof. After saying that, Jura looked at Iyez's direction. His Excellency Yi, it's about time to explain the mission of the crusade against the 6 demon generals, right? Hearing this, everyone in the room, including Yi, finally reacted. Thinking back to the pure magic competition just now, except for Alusha, almost everyone had some lingering fear. Sorry, Wendy. Noah half squatted down and helped Winnie wipe the sweat on her face. I was too impulsive. I was too excited and didn't consider that you couldn't bear it. It's not like that. Wendy hurriedly shook her head. Brother Noah is really strong, much stronger than me. Noah smiled and patted Wendy's head. Wendy will become stronger sooner or later. While talking, he was like an actor who was about to perform a song and dance drama, posing and explaining in the center of the hall. Now, let's start the explanation of the mission. Everyone, please look here. As soon as he finished speaking, a holographic screen suddenly appeared around Iye's body. Chapter 10:51. The sudden appearance of the screens of light around Iye surprised everyone present. Those light screens weren't simple projections, but a kind of magic. It was called Ancient Book, which was said to be able to search for all knowledge that still existed today, compress the information, and transmit it to a specific target. It could also transmit the user's thoughts directly into the mind of others. It wasn't directly used in battle, but was inclined towards intelligence magic. And the person who possessed this magic was none other than the owner of the Blue Pegasus. Standing next to One Knight, Blue Pegasus snapped his fingers. Suddenly, on the light screens that suddenly flashed out from the space, images abruptly appeared one after another, and some words were marked on them. Everyone took in the images that flashed on the light screens one by one. They saw that it was actually the image of a person. Appearing on the upper left was a young man with a fierce face, surrounded by a snake. Next to him, the words Cobra were labeled. Appearing on the lower left was a young man with his back facing the screen. Only half of his face was shown, dressed like a motorcar clan. Next to him, the words Lisa were labeled. Appearing on the upper middle was a man with a rough appearance, a tall stature, and a square face, holding a book in his hand. Next to him, the words Hidi were labeled. Appearing on the lower middle was a young girl with short blue hair, wearing revealing clothes, with a pair of fox-like, slightly tricky, and looked very thorny. Next to her, the words Anger were labeled. Appearing on the upper right was a man sitting on a blanket suspended in mid-air, with his eyes closed, head lowered, as if he was sleeping. Next to him, the words Dark Night were labeled. As for the last person who appeared on the lower right, it was a middle-aged man with dark skin, a face full of dark lines, holding a skull crutch, about 30 or 40 years old. Next to him, the words Brian were labeled. At the top of the 3 rows of images, there was a guild name labeled Orthodox One. 6 demon generals, oration cease. Impressively, it was all the members of the 6 demon generals, oration cease, which had always only had 6 sorcerers. As you can see, this is some information we have collected about the 6 demon generals, oration cease. Blue Pegasus said to the people present while tapping on a light screen in front of him. Although it is said to be intelligence, we have only collected the most basic information, such as their appearance and name. The rest of the information is very little, and there is no way to know their specific fighting strength. We only know that each of them has the power to rival a guild and is very dangerous. Following Blue Pegasus' explanation, more words appeared on the images. Everyone, please take a look. Rang pointed at the words beside the images. Although we don't know the specific strength of the sorcerers of the 6 demon generals, oration cease. Hearing Blue Pegasus' words, Noah and the others also noticed the description of the battle marked in the images. Cobra was able to control the venomous snakes he carried with him to fight, and the magic he used was unknown. Lisa used a magic that could increase her speed and used her super high speed to chase after the opponent. Hitai used a magic that could soften hard materials, and even the earth could be softened into sand in an instant to attack the enemy. Angel used a magic that could summon a star spirit, which was called Star Spirit Magic. Brian's magic was not fixed, and he seemed to have mastered many kinds of magic. He even had a large amount of knowledge about magic, and he often used dark magic. In the last Dark Night, this person was not only good at magic, but also had no idea what level his combat ability was at. This was because when the 6 demon generals' oration cease was in action, this person was just like what was shown in the images, sitting on a blanket suspended in the air and sleeping, and never made a move. However, it was said that when someone launched an attack on him, no matter what kind of attack it was ineffective. Seeing that the information about the sorcerers of the 6 demon generals' oration cease was not complete, a sense of mystery suddenly filled everyone's hearts. A sorcerer who can control venomous snakes, a sorcerer who can use speed magic, a sorcerer who can soften the earth. Dura's gaze swept across the images of Cobra, Lisa, and Hitai, and his iron-like face tensed up. They really have gathered all kinds of sorcerers, a sorcerer who is a star spirit sorcerer like me? Lucy stared at Angel, her beautiful eyebrows slightly puckered. It would be good if we could know what kind of star spirit this angel uses. The last night? Alusha looked at the image of the last night thoughtfully. There is too little information about this person, and it is very likely that he will become a variable in the mission. We must be careful. Brian. Noah looked at the image of the dark-skinned man, named Brian, and narrowed his eyes. He is the president of the 6 demon generals' oration cease, ? That's right. The last night twisted his bloated body, stretched out his finger, and pointed at Noah. This sorcerer named Brian is very dangerous. In the past, he was a member of the Magic Development Bureau, so he has a lot of knowledge about magic. This time, Brian is eyeing a magic sealed in the sea of trees in front of us, which is why he brought the 6 demon generals' oration cease here. A magic sealed in the sea of trees? Everyone looked at each other. That magic is called nirvana, Xiang said with a serious face. According to records, it seems to be sealed in the sea of trees by ancient humans. We don't know exactly what kind of magic it is, Ivan answered. However, since even the ancient people chose to seal it, it must be a very dangerous magic. The 6 demon generals' oration cease seem to be eyeing that magic, which is why they came out at this time when the council was disbanded. Lotus also looked around at everyone. After the decision of the presidents of the major guilds, everyone thinks that we shouldn't let the magic, which we don't even know how dangerous it is, appear, let alone let it fall into the hands of the 6 demon generals' oration cease. So, our mission, other than crusading against the 6 demon generals' oration cease, is to not let them get the magic called nirvana. Gray scratched his head. It feels like it's going to be troublesome. In short, there shouldn't be a problem if we defeat all of them, right? Naz, who was standing at the side with a confused look, obviously didn't understand the conversation at all. He clenched his fist and fiercely smashed it into the palm of his other hand, and said excitedly, "Very good. I'm burning up. Watch me beat up all of those 6 demon generals, whatever." Shouting such a sentence, Naz didn't even give time to react and rushed outside with a face full of excitement. Wait, Alusha, Lucy, and Gray all took a deep breath. That idiot. Almost subconsciously, the 3 of them chased after him. You want to take the credit? Gray. Leo snorted coldly. Surely, let's go too. Yes. Shirley nodded without any hesitation and followed Leo, running outside. Yoshi. Echo seemed to be affected and was a little hot-blooded. Let's go too. Oh. Lotus and Ivana responded at the same time. In the blink of an eye, except for Noah, Kara, Wendy, Xiaolulu, and Hubby, the rest of the people ran away without a trace. Wendy was a little at a loss. Then what should we do? Noah didn't answer Wendy's question, but his eyes flashed slightly and looked in the direction of Iya. Chapter 1052. Big Brother Noah. Seeing that not only did Noah not pay attention to the large group that rushed out, but instead looked at Iya, who was standing there with a post, Wendy felt a little strange. Aren't we going to chase after them? Yes, Sir Noah. Jura said with a serious face. "We can't let our companions do whatever they want. By the way, why are you looking at me like that?" Iya thought of something. He was a little scared, but also a little proud. He put his hands on his waist and made another post. "Could it be that even men can't resist my handsome fragrance?" Jura, Hubby, and Xia Lulu's mouth twitched, and they couldn't stay calm. Wendy, on the other hand, seemed to have believed Noah's words for an entire night. Her tender and pretty face began to change. In the end, she grabbed Noah's sleeve tightly and cried out in a tearful voice. Men can't do it. However, in the face of everyone's uneasiness, Noah wasn't as unbearable as he was when he first met them. Instead, he smiled calmly. "I'm just admiring Blue Pegasus for being able to collect information on the Oration Seas of the Baram Alliance that controls the entire Dark World to this extent. No, that's not our credit, but because Xiangjuan's magic can play a crucial role in this regard." Iya made an exaggerated smile like he was acting. Coupled with that extremely unique face, it simply made people have the urge to turn around and leave. If we only relied on the Blue Pegasus, we wouldn't have been able to gather this much information. Is that so? Noah shrugged and suddenly said such a sentence. Then, Mr. Ye, regarding the movements of the other two guilds of the Baram Alliance, did Blue Pegasus also notice? The other two guilds of the Baram Alliance. Juro was stunned. Even Ye, who was posing with a post, paused slightly, then returned to his original state. He closed his index finger and middle finger and pointed at Noah with a handsome movement. The corner of his eyes seemed to be flashing with little stars. Why did Noah, Kuin, suddenly ask about the other two guilds of the Baram Alliance? No choice, Noah said with a smile. After all, the Baram Alliance doesn't only have one Oration Cease, right? The Baram Alliance that controls the dark world of the entire continent is formed by the three most powerful dark guilds. This matter everyone knows. And the three dark guilds, respectively, Oration Cease, the 6 demon generals, Grimoire Heart, Tartaros, the gates of the underworld. Among them, Grimoire Heart was publicly recognized as the strongest of the 3 dark guilds. The gates of the underworld, Tartaros, came in second. The 6 demon generals, Oration Cease, were at the bottom of the list. Oration Cease, Grimoire Heart, and Tartaros. These 3 dark guilds are in an alliance, after all. If Oration Cease is forced into a corner by us, then it is very likely that they will ask for help from the other 2 guilds. Noah looked straight at Iya and said, "So, we have to be more or less on guard against Grimoire Heart and Gate of the Underworld." Hearing Noah's words, Jura fell into deep thought. Only Iya, who thought that Noah's words were funny, stood on his tiptoes as if he was dancing. In this regard, Noyajin, you don't have to worry at all. The so-called double-cross phenomenon also exists. Although the 3 dark guilds, Oration Cease, Grimoire Heart, and Tartaros, are allies, as long as it doesn't involve their own interests, they won't take the risk of clashing head-on with us who stand on the side of light. Oh, Noah's eyebrows twitched. In other words, this time, our enemy is really only the 6 demon generals, Oration Cease. For example, wouldn't the Grimoire Heart suddenly interfere? That's right, Iya said with certainty. At least, other than Oration Cease, we don't know of a second dark guild operating near the forest ocean. Is that so? Noah nodded and said. Then I'm relieved. The moment he finished speaking, Noah suddenly moved. Along with the sound of a tremor, an intricate geometric pattern suddenly spun out in front of Noah. An astonishing amount of mana gathered in it, and like a cannon, it was aimed in the direction of One Night. Wah! Including Wendy and Jura, everyone present was shocked. Iya's extremely unique face froze. His pair of pupils suddenly shrunk to the size of a needle tip. Under such circumstances, the magic gathered on the gorgeous magic circle suddenly turned into a fatal magic light beam. It rubbed against the air and covered Iye's entire body. Pong! In a corner of a villa in the suburbs, a wall suddenly burst open without any warning. A huge light beam shot out from within, and in the midst of the vibration in the air, its momentum didn't decrease as it violently shot forward. Wherever the huge magic light beam passed, the ground was dug open, and in an instant, a long gully was blasted open. Trees and rocks were annihilated by the terrifying magic light beam, not even leaving behind debris as they directly evaporated. The only thing that could survive the magic light beam was a figure. A figure with light, smoke emitting from its body, its hand tightly holding a key that seemed to be made of gold. It rolled on the ground a few times before finally stabilizing its body and stood up in an extremely sorry state. Looking closely, it was actually a young girl. She was wearing revealing clothes, and although her appearance wasn't bad, there was a kind of unruly feeling about her. She had a head of short blue hair. Her appearance was exactly the same as one of the images displayed by the ancient book. She was the star elf archmage from the 6 demon generals Oration Cease, Angel. Anger, who stood up from the ground in a sorry state, only had one thought in her mind. I've been discovered. Before she could finish her sentence, another voice faintly sounded, replying to Anger's words. Could it be that you think you can't be discovered? Saying such a sentence, a figure slowly walked out from the exploding wall of the villa that was filled with smoke and dust. Unfortunately, when I came down from upstairs and saw Ye for the first time, I knew that he was fake. Yes, that Ye just now was fake. That was why Noah attacked Ye. That's impossible, Angela yelled out almost reflexively. Those who have been touched by Gemini not only have their appearance, but even their abilities and thoughts will be copied. How could they be discovered? Gemini? So the person who turned into a Ye was the star elf you controlled? Noah glanced at the golden key in Anger's hand. So that's how it is. Gemini of the 12 zodiac signs. No wonder it has such a miraculous ability. Indeed, I felt the aura and magic of the One Night from Gemini's body when he turned into One Night. This proves that its duplication ability is extraordinary. Then why? Anger's face was filled with disbelief. Why was it discovered? Because it only has the copying ability, not the hiding ability. Noah said with a smile that was not a smile. Ye's aura was mixed with its own aura, so how could it not know that it was pretending to be Ye? And Jia-Er's pretty face immediately turned ugly. Chapter 1053. It was just like what Noah had said. After receiving the news that Lamia Scale had arrived, Noah came downstairs with Wendy and saw One Night at that time. From then on, Noah knew that One Night was not normal. The reason was because he sensed that there was another aura mixed with One Night's aura. Of course, at that time, Noah could not say for sure that One Night was fake, until, with his outstanding sensing ability, Noah felt that there was an obscure magic connected to One Night, as if it was maintaining the existence and power of One Night. Noah understood that One Night was fake. However, Noah did not know that One Night was actually Star, and thought that it was just a special puppet. Otherwise, there would be no need for someone to transfer magic to it to maintain its operation. After sensing the obscure magic connected to One Night, Noah followed the clues and used his sensing ability to find an unfamiliar aura hiding in the villa. Talking to the fake One Night, 1, was to fight for time to find a mastermind behind the scenes, and 2, more or less, he wanted to know something about the devil's heart. This was also why Noah did not rush out with Alusha, Naz Gray, Lucy, and the others. After confirming which corner of the villa the aura was in, Noah simply made his move. After all, instead of asking a fake, it was better to ask the person controlling the fake One Night. Angel of the 6 demon general, Oration Cease, ? Immediately, Noah looked at Angel. Obediently surrender here and honestly answer some of my questions, then I may consider letting you go. Do you think I'm an idiot? Angel laughed, but there was not a trace of a smile in her eyes. You will let me go? It doesn't look like it. Is it? Noah looked indifferent. You don't look like someone who would surrender just because of this condition, do you? Isn't that obvious? And Jenner's smile, turned dangerous. I am the Oration Cease, the sixth demon general. A golden key suddenly appeared in Engier's hand. Open it. The Scorpio gate, Scopio. The golden key in Engier's hand shone with a dazzling light. Clank. A dazzling magic array suddenly flashed in the dazzling light and gradually gathered light particles, causing the light particles to condense into a shape. After the light faded away, a man dressed in hip-hop clothes with a steel-like scorpion tail appeared on the spot. Oh, Noah was surprised. You have a second star spirit from the 12 zodiac gates? Scopio. Angel ignored Noah and ordered, "Kill him for me." Yeeha. The star spirit named Scopio made an extremely hip-hop pose, but the giant tail on his back suddenly stood up. Desert Destroyer. A burst of violent sand shot out from the steel tail of the star spirit named Scopio. It was like a tornado made of sand, whistling in the direction of Noah. Seeing the violent sand tornado enveloping his body, Noah's eyes flashed with a fierce glint. Just as Noah was about to make a move, a steel-like steady voice sounded. "Rock iron bulwark." At this moment, the surrounding ground suddenly trembled. Rumble! Rock pillars suddenly rose from the trembling ground. Like a tie, they curved in a very natural manner and shrouded the area in front of Noah. Pong! The violent sand tornado suddenly fell on the hard rock wall, causing a burst of impact wind and explosion sound. The dense sand was like a fog, spreading throughout the entire space. I didn't expect that there would be people from the 6 demon generals, Oration Cease, mixed in. They thought that we were the ones on the crusade and had the initiative. Such thinking is too naive. Along with such a voice, Dura, who was holding a monk's staff, walked out of the hole in the wall with a heavy expression. His gaze was like a sharp sword, piercing Angel's body. "Sir Noah, let's work together to take down this enemy." "Don't worry." Noah didn't even turn his head as he looked at Angel with a playful smile. "You can't escape." Hearing this, Angel was naturally unable to restrain her anger, but at the same time, there was a trace of fear in her heart. Although Angel had pretended to be Gemini for a night and did not personally go into battle, she did not personally experience the horror of Noah and Dura's mana competition. But the strength of their mana made Angel, who was hiding in the depths of the villa, feel an extremely heavy pressure. At that time, the shock in Angel's heart was no less than that of Alusha, Naz, Gray, and Lucy. Therefore, Angel knew that the 2 men in front of her, no matter which one, had far more power than her. If there was only one person, Engier might be able to play some tricks and come up with something. But if it was 2 people, then Angel really did not have any thoughts. Noah smiled when he saw the trace of fear on Engier's face. "What? Want to escape? Aren't you the 6 demon generals, Oration Cease? You can only be proud now." Angel bit her lips and said hatefully, "Even if you have 2 archmages at the level of the 10 great saint magicians, we have 6 people in the 6 demon generals, Oration Cease. You have no chance of winning. Whether there's a chance of winning or not is not up to you to decide," Noah said very calmly. "Moreover, if you have 6 people on your side, then we have 13 people on our side. Who is the one who has no chance of winning?" 13 people? Angel laughed disdainfully. "Other than the 2 of you, the others are just slightly bigger worms to the 6 demon generals, Oration Cease. They're not a threat at all." "Is that so?" Noah looked straight at Angel and smiled. "If that's the case, then I have to tell you that your so-called 6 demon generals, Oration Cease, is just a slightly bigger fly to me. You're not a threat, but you're quite annoying. I think it's better for you to leave now." After saying that, Noah raised a hand. "Won't." Immediately, golden ripples reverberated in the space around Engier. As the ripples spread out, silver chains with golden flowing lights suddenly shot out. They were like pythons pouncing on their prey. They circled in the air and coiled around Engier's limbs. Angel did not even have time to react before the chains wrapped around her hands and feet tightened. She was fiercely pulled off the ground and into the air. Like Jesus nailed to the cross, She was tightly wrapped by the chains that shot out from the golden ripples and hung up. Goo! The pain from her limbs made Angel groan in pain. She did not have time to be surprised by this sudden attack, and quickly ordered Scipio. Save me! Scipio abruptly turned around and pointed his steel tail at the golden ripples around Angeli. However, Scipio undoubtedly made a huge mistake. In order to save his master, Scipio had exposed his back to his opponent. Pucci. The next moment, a luxurious sharp sword suddenly shot out and pierced through Scipio's chest. Ugh! Scipio's pupils trembled slightly. Then, the light in his eyes gradually disappeared. His body was also annihilated in the air in a burst of light. Seeing this scene with her own eyes, Angel's pretty face suddenly changed. Victory and defeat were decided at this moment. In the end, one of the members of the 6 demon generals, Oration Cease, who was known to have the power to rival a guild, was defeated in less than 5 minutes. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.